Welcome to the June 4th, 2024 meeting of the Carrboro Town Council. This is a regular business meeting this evening, and we will start out with a poetry reading from, where is she? There she is, our Carrboro Poet Laureate, Liza Wolf Francis. Hello, Liza.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to see so many people here tonight. I've been hearing lots of excitement and a big buzz about all the things that people want to talk about, and I think it's just so amazing that we have such an engaged town. So it's awesome. I hope that that everybody listens and is respectful and enjoys hearing each other's words. And I'm going to read a poem. I want to say thank you to the council, and I will see you all in the fall. Next week is the last meeting, and there will be another poet in the community who comes and reads. So just wanted to say.
We have 2 more meetings.
You have 2 more meetings?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, then I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, my bad on that one. So this poem is by Toy Darracott, and she is an author of 6 poetry collections and a literary memoir. She's won numerous poetry prizes and literary awards and is well known in the larger poetry community of the United States. And her poem is called Cherry Blossoms. I went down to mingle my breath with the breath of the cherry blossoms. There were photographers, mothers arranging their children against gnarled old trees. A couple hugging asks a passerby to snap them like that so that their love will always be caught between 2 friendships, ours and the friendship of the cherry trees. Oh, cherry, why can't my poems be as beautiful? A young woman in a fur-trimmed coat sets a card table with linens, candles, a picnic basket, and wine. A father tips a boy's wheelchair back so he can gaze up at a branched heaven. All around us, the blossoms flurry down, whispering, "Be patient, you have an ancient beauty. Be patient, you have an ancient beauty." Thank you.
Thank you. And so let me make a correction. Next week is a scheduled works, so it is Town Manager Tony. Do you want to make that correction?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. There is no meeting next Tuesday. After the recommended budget tonight, it will be an opportunity for people to weigh in for 2 weeks, and then we'll reconvene on the 18th for the budget adoption.
The 18th is when I'm not here.
That's when you're going to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Jay Bryan will be here to read. Yes,
okay.
He will be here to read. So thank
We'll
you very
see you
much.
in the
Sorry
fall.
for the confusion. I'm confusing
Maybe we'll see you over
dates.
the summer. That's okay.
I know. I hope I see everybody over the summer.
Right.
Stay cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy.
All right, so we have a couple of proclamations. The first one is the Pollinator Week proclamation, and Laura Janway, our Environmental Sustainability Coordinator, will accept this proclamation. Hello, Laura. Pollinator Week. Whereas in October 2014, the town of Carrboro became the 3rd municipality in the nation to be recognized as a Bee City USA. And whereas as mayor, I signed the 2024 National Wildlife Federation's Mayor's Monarch Pledge, and our town has officially committed to taking meaningful action to protect the monarch butterfly. And whereas a goal of these initiatives is to promote healthy, sustainable habitats for bees, monarchs, and other pollinators. And whereas the town of Carrboro recognizes that human health ultimately depends on well-functioning biodiverse ecosystems. And whereas pollination provides significant environmental benefits and plays a vital role for trees and plants, producing much of our food supply, creating recreational and economic development opportunities, and enhancing our quality of life. And whereas bees and other pollinators around the globe have experienced dramatic declines due to a combination of habitat loss, use of pesticides, and the spread of pests and diseases, with grave implications for the health of flora and fauna. And whereas both the Western and Eastern North American monarch populations have seen significant declines, with less than 1% of the Western monarch population remaining, while the Eastern population has fallen by as much as 90%. And whereas cities and their residents have the opportunity to support bees and other pollinators on both public and private lands, and whereas the town has worked to create pollinator habitats by installing native bee nest boxes, establishing a pollinator garden, and planting pollinator-friendly vegetation to restore a riparian buffer. Now, therefore, I, Barbara M. Foushee, Mayor of the town of Carrboro, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim June 17th through June 23rd, 2024 to be Pollinator Week in Carrboro. I encourage all residents to join the planning department staff for office hours throughout the week for a pollinator activity at the farmers market on Wednesday, June 12th, 2024 from 3 to 6 p.m. and for a pollinator movie screening on June 23rd, 2024 at 3 p.m. at the Century Center, this the 4th day of June, 2024. Ms. Janway, would you like to say a few words? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Foushee. Yes, as Mayor Foushee mentioned, the town has been dedicated to pollinator conservation for many years now. It's a big part of our community climate action plan is protecting and conserving all of our native local ecosystems. So I'm really excited for the activities coming up during Pollinator Week that Mayor Foushee mentioned, teaming up with the Farmers Market next week for a kids market bunch activity and the annual movie screening at the Century Center. We're also working with our Public Works Department to keep the pollinator events going throughout the summer. So stay tuned. We're going to be holding Moth Night in late July, where we're going to set up some sheets to go mothing and identify lots of species there. It'll be a lot of fun. And we also have the Great Southeast Pollinator Census coming up in August. So stay tuned and really excited for everything coming up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lots going on there. Go to www.carboronc.gov to find out more about all those wonderful activities and more. The next proclamation is for Gun Violence Awareness Day. We have our Chief of Police, Chris Atack, who will join me at the podium. Also wanted to mention that I do believe Councilmember Haven O'Donnell is heavily involved with Moms Demand Action. And so I did just also want to mention that. Gun Violence Awareness Day. Whereas every day, more than 120 Americans are killed by gun violence and more than 320 are shot, with an average of more than 17,000 gun homicides every year. And whereas Americans are 26 times more likely to die by gun homicide than people in other high-income countries. And whereas North Carolina ranked 21st in the U.S. by firearm death rate, 16 per 100,000 people. Whereas this crisis costs the state $471 million each year, of which $19.5 million is paid by taxpayers. And whereas gun homicides and assaults are concentrated in cities, with more than half of all firearm-related gun deaths in the nation occurring in 127 cities. And whereas towns and cities across the nation, including Carrboro, are working to end the senseless violence with evidence-based solutions. And whereas protecting public safety in the communities they serve is local government's highest responsibility. And whereas support for the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens goes hand in hand with keeping guns away from people with dangerous histories. And whereas elected officials and law enforcement officers, in partnership with local violence intervention activists and resources, know their communities best, are the most familiar with local criminal activity and how to address it, and are best positioned to understand how to keep their citizens safe. And whereas gun violence prevention is more important than ever, as we see an increase in firearm homicides and non-fatal shootings across the country, increased calls to domestic violence hotlines, and an increase in gun violence. And whereas in January 2023, teen, Hadiah Pendleton, an honor student, was tragically shot and killed at age 15. And on June 7, 2024, to recognize the 27th birthday of Hadiah, people across the United States will recognize National Gun Violence Awareness Day and wear orange in tribute to her, as well as victims of gun violence and their loved ones. And whereas the idea was inspired by a group of Hadiah's friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange. They chose this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out in the woods, and orange is a color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 7th, the first Friday in June in 2024, to help raise awareness about gun violence. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the hands of people who should not have access to them, and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our families and communities safe. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Barbara M. Foushee, Mayor of the town of Carrboro, North Carolina, join with the Orange County Board of County Commissioners and the Chapel Hill Town Council in proclaiming June 7th, 2024 to be Gun Violence Awareness Day. I encourage all residents to support their local communities' efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. And on this Friday, again, June 7, 2024 at 12 noon, we will have a short program at Peace and Justice Plaza in Chapel Hill to acknowledge Gun Violence Awareness Day. So please join us and wear orange. Chief ATAG, where you at? Where you at? There you go.
Appreciate you.
Want to say something?
Thank you, Mayor. You know, you read the aggregates and it's very troubling, but here we are 6 days from our last homicide that was exactly this kind of data here in Carrboro. I can tell you that our investigators are working diligently to identify the folks, hold them responsible. We're working with Compass Center, which is a local domestic violence partner in lethality assessment protocol to try to prevent these in the future. And we're really thinking about the victim and the impact and those impacted by his death. So just thank you for the support. It's a partnership, and so we're here to do what we can. So thank you.
Announcement of upcoming meetings. Mr. Joyner.
Thank you. If I may, I'd like to announce the upcoming meetings for the next 2 weeks, starting with the Carrboro Appearance Commission meeting, which will be June the 6th at 6:30, and that meeting will be virtual. There is an Environmental Advisory Board meeting on that same day, June the 6th, and that meeting is virtual as well. The Planning Board meeting and the Joint Advisory Board meeting will be June the 6th at 7:30, and that meeting will be virtual as well. Transportation Advisory Board meeting will be June the 6th at 7:30, and that meeting will be held virtually. There is a Human Services Advisory Commission on June the 7th at 1:30 p.m., and that is a virtual meeting as well. Carrboro Tourism Development Authority meeting on June the 10th from 3 to 4 p.m., and that is a virtual meeting. Recreation and Parks Commission meeting is June the 10th, and that will be at the Century Center. There will not be a town council work session next week. That has been canceled. There's an Economic Sustainability Commission meeting on June the 12th at Town Hall, and that meeting is at 6 p.m. There is a meeting on June the 13th, the Stormwater Advisory Commission, and that is at Town Hall. And there is a Climate Action Team meeting on June the 13th at 7 p.m., and that is a virtual meeting. The next council meeting will be June the 18th here in Town Hall. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joyner. Council members, are any meetings that the town council will also meet with? I don't know, did you say that about El Centro Hispano on?
I did not mention that, but that is on the record.
Okay. Anybody have any other meetings? Oh, Councilmember Posada.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not a meeting, but an invitation to Latinx Pride this weekend at right outside here. We're here in Sumba. We'll have, I believe it's the 5th annual Latinx Pride, and the 4th time the town of Carrboro will be hosting it. So excited to be there. I know several of us are going to be at the event, and this is a pride celebration commemorating and honoring all of our queer folks, not just here in town, but also our Latinx folks from across our community. So come out. It's going to be fun. I'm excited for it. Go a little crazy. I yield back.
Thank you, Councilmember Posada. Any other meetings from anybody? Nope. We are down to our public comment period. I have 3 people signed up to speak. Before we get into that, so there is 3 minutes to speak on your issue. The timer is here. Please adhere to those 3 minutes. Address your comments to the entire council. Please feel free to share your concerns and issues with the council, but refrain from comments about individuals, including council members and town staff. So if you respect those 3 items, then we're good to go. And we'll go with the first person. Is it Neela? Neela? Come help me pronounce your name. What am I saying? Come on up here. Come on up here.
Okay, that's fine.
Neela. Welcome, Neela. Get the microphone for Neela. So just go around where I was. Just go around where Mr. Joyner
Right here.
Yep. Make sure she can. Yep.
My name is Neela Babbitt, and I'm here today to change the name of Carrboro to Peaceboro because the person we named this town after, his name is Julian Shakespeare Carr, and he was a racist. He slapped African Americans and bragged about it. He made African Americans work and didn't pay them. But he did good things too. Like he gave money to college. He gave money to the Army Hospital. He gave money to women protesting to vote, but I think probably only white women, since he was a racist. So it's kind of hard if we decide if we should change the name or not. But I think, in my opinion, even if you do good things, but the bad thing is really bad, like being a racist. We should change the name, but if it's really hard to change the name permanently, I think we should have a day of just a festival of just peace, and the name of Carrboro's Peaceboro, and that day I feel like it should be on February 9th. So how I know this is my teacher, Miss Brown, she's right there. She taught me all those things that I learned, and I really want to thank her because she just gave me this opportunity to talk with everyone here.
You did great. Thank you. Thank you. That was great.
Maybe with the mayor?
Yeah, go ahead. Or you can come around. You want to come around with all of us and we kind of squeeze in or do something?
I got the beep on.
Where can we put her? We'll put her right here.
Okay, I got you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Gosh. Oh, that's some bravery. Brave young lady. She's She's honing her craft now. Yeah, so fantastic. Thank you. The second person, I cannot quite read. What
Maybe Isaac Woodsell.
is it? Isaac?
Isaac Woolsey. I have bad handwriting.
That's okay. Come on up, Mr. Woolsey. Isaac Woolsey. Welcome.
Which mic?
Either one,
Okay.
whichever one suits you.
Hello, Madam Mayor, Town Council, support staff. Happy Pride. I want to get that out of the way. But even though we're celebrating Pride, there is a marginalized community in this town that is being overlooked. The disabled community. According to the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, which was ruled by the Supreme Court, all disabled people, one of their requirements is accessibility in transit and equal job opportunities, which, I don't know about you, I don't really see in Carrboro, or Peaceboro. But my issue is, I literally, because of my disability, I have dysgraphia, as you could tell. I can't really draw well, and I also have astigmatism in both eyes, and I have high functioning autism, depression, and anxiety, and I cannot drive a vehicle. And that's the worst part, is I can't drive a vehicle in this country. And because of that, I cannot drive. I've been denied basic job opportunities. The only job I could get was the Walmart in Chatham County, and none of the easy riders would take me there because after certain hours, and I worked the night shift. This is, I don't think this is right. I am a citizen of this town. I voted in the elections. A lot of you I voted for. I need to be able to have a job and have transportation to and from the job, because the ADA says their transportation is guaranteed to and from jobs and health appointments and even leisurely activities. I literally cannot go to a UNC game. So I like to thank you for listening. I want more accessible transportation that runs at least till midnight. I think the pandemic has long been over. I think we need to buckle down and do this, and we need to encourage more businesses to hire disabled people, not just through Voc Rehab, but to actually legitimately do that. Thank you, and I don't want a picture taken. I am not photogenic.
Thank you, Mr. Woodson. Thank you. Next is Miss April Mills. Miss Mills, come on up.
I didn't see April.
Hey.
Hello, Town Council members and Mayor. Thank you for having me. My name is April Mills, and I ran for the opportunity to serve the Carrboro community as a Town Council member this last election. I am also an OWASA customer. I'm here to ask that you do not elect Melody Kramer to the OWASA board and remind this council that this town prides itself on diversity and inclusion.
Ms. Mills, please stick to the issue and not individuals.
Who has broken the town's code of conduct and the OWASA's resolution affirming diversity and inclusion values and supporting a community free of hatred. Please allow me to explain my experience running for office. Because I chose to differentiate myself from other candidates sitting on a council because I have children in the public school system, I view the school system as an economic driver for our community. I created a bullet on a postcard stating that there wouldn't be any council members with children in the public schools. The next thing I know, I am being called homophobic by an individual that writes for the Triangle blog. I'm now being harassed by a current OWASA board member that is based on gender. Let me tell you the cause and effect of this person's accusations. Volunteers, many of my friends and family who wore my shirts and had them on different social posts throughout the community, admins of those groups removed photos and emailed volunteers stating that they had been removed. This happened multiple times. My kids were questioned about the statements at school. My kids are in 5th and 7th grade. Community members looked in, treated my family different in the community, some name calling. I had multiple signs smashed, not just removed or taken, but like boxed in. Please keep in mind that I'm 44 years old. I know this is on Google search. This will remain visible for future job opportunities and other leadership positions. This is defamation of character and could hurt future earning potentials. Because this individual is a blogger and utilizes her current board title for her gain in the communities as an influencer, and because she can control what is viewable on this blog, she controls a narrative in our community that is creating hatred. This is a person that never met me, never had a conversation with me, has no idea of my struggles to have a family, no idea of my children's sexuality or my family member's sexuality. OWASA candidates there are other OWASA candidates who have a science and water background that will bring more value and respect to this position. How many community members filed complaints against this individual? I know I have. Do you know that on June 12, 2023, the OWASA board approved a resolution affirming diversity and inclusion values supporting a community free of hatred? The OWASA Diversity and Inclusion Program has been in place since 2016. Let me cause to your attention. OWASA values a diverse, inclusive, and welcoming workplace and community and is committed to treating employees, customers, and all people with respect and dignity. I am a customer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Mills. Appreciate it. I do not have anyone else signed up to speak for a public comment. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on it? Right. You're welcome. So we're going to move into the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are part of normal town business or are submitted in accordance with established procedure. There will be no discussion of the items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered individually. Items not removed from the consent agenda will be enacted with one motion. So tonight we have, looks like 9 items on the consent agenda. Item 24-120 will need to be pulled for the approval of June 20th, 27th, July 12th, September 12th, September 19th, and September 26th, 2023 minutes. Only certain council members can vote on these minutes, so I will be pulling that one just for the vote. And so right now I would like to ask for a motion to approve the balance of the consent agenda. Do you want to pull an item?
An item.
Which one?
Item 2.
Are you pulling to vote no or push to another meeting or?
To push to a future meeting, yeah.
Okay, and so council members, we're not going to discuss any items on the consent agenda. So discussion, as Councilmember Haven O'Donnell said, will move to a subsequent meeting. We know that that meeting will be June 18th. So can I get a motion to approve, looks like 3 through 9?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? It's been moved and properly seconded that we pass consent agenda items 3 through 9. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. So we're going to go back to the first item for approval of the minutes. And can I get a motion? There will be 4 of us that will vote on those minutes.
I'd like to move the minutes.
I'll
Thank you.
second.
All right, so it's been moved and properly seconded. Those that can vote on those minutes, you know who you are. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. So let's go to consent agenda item number 2, which is the appointment to the Orange Water and Sewer Authority. Councilmember Haven O'Donnell has expressed that she wants to move this item to the June 18th meeting.
I'm pretty troubled by this, and parliamentary procedure here constrains my ability to talk about it. Council members, would it be all right if we spent a minute here? This should have been pulled before this meeting, if this was going to be pulled. And not being able to discuss time-sensitive appointments in this moment is an abuse of this agenda.
Hold on one second.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe, if I remember our procedures correctly, the only reason that we would discuss a pulled item is if there is a time-sensitive nature to it. So, Madam Manager, I pose a question to you. What is the timeline that you need a decision on this agenda item from us?
Her term, currently it is Melody Kramer, who sits in the seat, and it expires on June 30th, if I think that is correct, June 30th, 2024.
That's correct.
Did you get the answer?
I did. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam.
Councilmember Haven
Now,
O'Donnell.
I just want to clarify that what we decide does not change the status of the current representative in the interest of the work that is being done with OWASA. The current representative would be able to stay on. I think the fact that there is community engagement on this question of reappointment, and in the interest of public trust, I just recommend that we discuss it further. I don't think something like this has come up before, and that's the reason why the recommendation to pull it did not come up before.
I would imagine that you are aware, Councilmember Haven O'Donnell, that this would impact the ability to vote on the OWASA officers on their board. Maybe you're not aware of that. Certainly, you have been CC'd on OWASA's multiple investigations into this issue, which we have known about since before this meeting.
As a matter of fact, they stay seated. The representation stays seated, so it does not impact their ability to continue serving.
Okay, council members, let's we're gonna move this item to June 18th. Do we have room to move it to June 18th, Town Manager Tony? I know it's jam-packed because we don't have a meeting next week, and so
That's correct, Mayor. You would need a vote to move it because it is on the consent, and so you would need a full.
thank you for that.
Because you have to vote on each item. So to pull it, if you want to move it, you would need a full vote for it. If not, you would vote to approve it or not.
I'd like to move the item. I'd like to move the approval.
That a motion?
I move that we approve the appointment. to
Motion
OWASA.
by Mayor Pro Tem Nowell. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Posada. Are we ready for the question, or is there any further comment? And this is for the reappointment to the Orange Water and Sewer Authority Board of Directors for Melody Kramer. Are we ready to vote? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries 5-1. We have completed the consent agenda. Thank you. Town Manager Tony, we're at the public hearing. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor, there is a need for a public hearing. This is a legislative public hearing on Carrboro Land Use Ordinance Text Amendment Update and clarify water quality buffers, road buffers, setback exceptions, and fences. So our planner Duncan Dobson is going to do a brief overview of this item and then allow opportunity for public comment.
Welcome, Duncan. And
Much.
while I'll go ahead and open the public hearing, and we will hear from town staff on this item.
All right, thanks everyone. Good evening. Tonight I will be presenting on this proposed text amendment to the land use ordinance. As a reminder, this is a legislative public hearing, so no sworn testimony is required. Tonight I'll be going through a brief description of the text amendments or text amendment, going over the procedure for adoption, and then be available for questions at the end of the presentation. There are a number of materials attached to the item. You have the consistency resolution in front of you, as well as the draft ordinance and a markup copy. There are more details about this item in the staff report, the pocket questions, as well as recommendations from advisory boards and commissions. Staff identified these changes and generated these changes to ensure clear alignment of our land use ordinance with state enabling legislation, including Chapter 160D and the Jordan Lake rules, as well as clarify some existing provisions to improve the use of the LUO by its administrators, the public, applicants, and council members themselves. There are 4 topics that are encompassed by this text amendment. I will talk about them individually very briefly. They are road buffers, fences, setback exceptions, and water quality buffers. I've also provided you a reference point for the markup pages of the agenda packet where you can see the clear differences and changes that are being proposed. To start with road buffers, there are protective road buffers required along a number of roads in Carrboro, as you can see on the screen here. Currently, there are specific encroachments that are allowed into those road buffers for road and utility crossings. There is a longstanding town and NCDOT practice to also include site triangles and bike and pedestrian facilities in these protective road buffers. A great example of this is the sidewalk you can see running along Homestead Road, which has a road buffer north of Claremont South and Kentfield. The language seeks to just add those specific encroachments into the road buffer provisions. For fences, currently fences that are constructed in a right-of-way setback are required to be substantially opaque, over 3 feet in height. Currently, the definition of substantially opaque, which is 50% opaque, is captured by a 2021 interpretive memo. This amendment seeks to fold that definition into the actual text of the ordinance for clarity for applicants who are applying for this provision. It also adds a new use class and zoning permit requirement for fences that are constructed, new fences that are constructed in right-of-way setbacks as well. The setback exception, I won't spend very long here. The main change here is a name change from special exception to setback exception to align more clearly with the provisions of Chapter 160D and the language of 160D. There is also a removal of the allowance of a petition with neighbor support at quasi-judicial hearings. That is struck from the markup copy, again, based off of language in 160D. And lastly, for water quality buffers, I know it looks like a lot, but there are 2 main things happening here. We are reorganizing the table of exempt and allowable activities in water quality buffers alphabetically, which is currently how the Jordan Lake rules are organized, to make it easy to cross-reference for our applicants and our administrators to understand all of the instances where Carrboro has more stringent regulations and preserve those. We are adding 3 uses that are currently outlined in the state's table. They are airport facilities, I believe on page 109 of your packet, recreational, I apologize, recreational accessory structures on page 109, and then water supply reservoirs on page 113. Those rows are also highlighted in yellow to make it very easy to see what the new additions to the table are. We are adding language from the Jordan Lake rules, or clarifying language from the Jordan Lake rules about our minor variances and major variances, and we are also making it clear the additional findings of fact that are required by the Board of Adjustment to issue a variance in those water quality buffer areas. Just to review the procedure here, we're holding the public hearing now. There are comments attached from the Planning Board and the Transportation Advisory Board as Attachment E. This was referred to Orange County and advisory boards and commissions in May. After deliberation and closing of the Town Council, there are two actions that you all need to take. One is considering the resolution of consistency, which is the paper copy in front of you, and I have a copy of it up here that we can look at. As well as consideration of the draft ordinance attachment B. I will leave this summary table up just as a quick reference, and I'm available for questions. Thank you very much.
Oh, Duncan, you better do it. Good job. Good job. So, are there any members of the public to speak on this item? No. Council members, questions? Councilmember Haven O'Donnell.
Duncan, thank you very much, and I really appreciate the clarity and the simplicity of the slides. I did want to ask a question regarding the water quality buffers, and if you would go back to the slide on the 5 points of, So I'm wondering why with the DEQ and DWQ looking at Jordan Lake rules right now, why we would want to go out ahead of what we know that they're still working on and they've yet to finish. I mean, I'm on a committee for that, so I happen to know.
Yes, great question. It's important that the town, we have to meet or exceed the requirements of the Jordan Lake rules. And since this isn't substantially changing the exemptions or allowable activities, but it is including activities that are listed currently in the Jordan Lake rules that applicants or staff are having trouble finding or having to look at two documents. As well as definitions for minor and major variances that, again, already apply to us when the Board of Adjustment is making decisions about what can and cannot happen in water quality buffers. So the goal here is to add clarity to the existing provisions that our applicants and our decision-making boards are using now, understanding that things could be subject to change and be revisited when the updated rules are, adopted, hopefully in 2025.
Right. And so because of that, I find this particular piece concerning, in addition to the fact that not only does the Jordan Lake rules, they won't be complete until that point, but we're going to be working on our LUO. And that's one of the priorities of this council. And I just find that getting out ahead when we know we could hold on this particular portion until we know exactly where the state comes down is the most sensible, rather than having to go back and Band-Aid and start Band-Aiding. Additionally, let me just ask, when you talk about the Board of Adjustment, you're talking about our Board of Adjustment.
Correct.
Okay. I don't mean this to sound disrespectful, believe me, but who on our Board of Adjustment has the qualifications to be talking about stream buffers and knowing the science behind the decisions that need to be made?
I think the important thing to recognize for the Board of Adjustment is the quasi-judicial nature of these variances and the evidentiary hearing that is required. So the burden is actually on the applicant to provide evidence that meets the findings of fact, the 4 that are for all variances, and then the additional ones that are for the minor and major variances here.
Because when you look at the major and minor variances, if you look at the variance that was allowed for West Main, I don't remember the number of the project, but the one on farthest most West Main near Berkshire, right? This would continue to allow for those kind of variances without specific review. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, can you clarify?
In other words, because of this change, it would allow for projects they wouldn't need to request that variance. This would automatically allow it.
They would still have to go through the variance process and individually, and they would still there would be no automatic granting of a variance. They would still have to seek a variance with the town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm comfortable with the rest of the aspects of the plan, but this one I find could have implications that we're uncertain of, especially well ahead of Jordan Lake rules. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Councilmember Haven-O'Donnell. Councilmember Frey.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. Duncan, thank you for a very clear presentation. It's a very dense issue, and so I really appreciate the simplicity that you're bringing to it. Just a note, Councilmember Haven-O'Donnell, I don't know if this will be helpful, because I'm the liaison to the Board of Adjustment. I'm familiar with their deliberations on this kind of thing. The key skill typically is legal expertise as opposed to stormwater, because they're making that quasi-judicial decision.
You know that.
Okay, great. I think just in response to some of the comment that we received in advance of this, just also wanted to note that there, as you already outlined, Duncan, there's no substantive change to the water quality buffers. If I understand correctly, the major and minor variances are already applicable when an applicant comes before the board. It's just that they're not clearly defined in the document.
And both terms major and minor variances are already in our land use ordinance. This is just expanding those definitions out and making it clearer what those minor and major variances are with the definitions, yes.
Thank you. And would I be correct in thinking that when eventually if there are eventually modifications to the Jordan Lake rules, that we would revisit this topic again?
Absolutely. And it could align with the LUO rewrite due to how that project is being scoped and the current plan for the adoption of those new rules.
Thank you so much.
I had one question. Could you go back to your first slide? I think was that the first one?
Oh, I'm sorry. First
That's okay.
slide.
After that one, I think, not the first one. Okay, here it is. So I saw mention of the North Carolina Administrative Code 160D. We just finished talking about the Jordan Lake rules. And so is this a have to kind of thing? Or do we have I know sometimes, especially when it's 160D, certain things that we have to do to make our land use ordinance kind of align with the newness of 160D. So that's my question. You say ensure clear alignment of LUO with state enabling. I guess that's my answer. And clarify provisions to improve use of the land use ordinance. And this is, also for the public, for general understanding as to why, this is coming. Like we're not just doing it, to be doing it.
Absolutely. Not all of these changes are directly due to 160D or the Jordan Lake rules. Some of them more so than others. Predominantly, the name change from special exception to setback exception is the one that has the most clear one-to-one with 160D.
Okay.
For fences and road buffers, those are more clarifying provisions of the ordinance in a way that we already use them.
Okay.
And then the water quality buffers, that state enabling legislation, is the Jordan Lake rules. So,
a variety of things there.
Variety of things.
Alignment.
It's alignment and clarity really is the theme here, and some of these topics really lean more towards clarity, and some of them more towards just alignment with it.
Instead of substantial change.
Exactly.
Is what you're saying. Okay. Thank you so much, Duncan. Comments or questions, Member Frey?
Madam Mayor, I would like to move attachment A with Duncan's assistance to make sure I get this template right. If I may.
Gotta read through.
Close the public.
Oh, no. Thank you, Nick. So I'll close the public hearing and then we will get our vote on.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would ask council to consider to have staff come back to us at, when the Jordan Lake rules are completed and finalized, that we would review. It may not mean that we're changing anything, but just that we make sure that we, as a council, are informed.
Thank you. Friendly amendment from Councilmember Haven O'Donnell that we revisit when the Jordan Lake rules are
I
complete.
think I need to, Councilmember Haven O'Donnell, I can't take up your friendly amendment on that because it's not related to the topic of the attachment. But I certainly, you're very welcome when we get through this particular motion to move that we ask that of staff.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
On the back end.
Fine.
Okay, thank
All right, Duncan, so help me out here. I believe you need us to move a finding in section 1.
Correct.
And a decision in section 3, is that correct?
Correct. And a finding in section 1 about consistency or inconsistency, a finding that the action is reasonable and in the public interest, and then ultimately the approval of the proposed amendment in section 3. Those are the three movements.
Three parts, okay, got it. So, Madam Mayor, I move that we find that the draft amendment is consistent with the comprehensive plan, climate action and environment, transportation and mobility, green stormwater infrastructure, water and energy and land use strategies noted, that the proposed text amendment is reasonable and in the public interest for the reasons listed, and that we therefore approve the proposed amendment.
Second.
Oh, it's been moved and properly seconded for attachment A, the consistency resolution. Are we ready for the question? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Madam Mayor, move attachment B.
Yep. Councilmember Posada, we need a second.
Seconded.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we pass attachment B, which is the ordinance to amend the Town of Carrboro Land Use Ordinance to update and clarify water quality buffers, road buffers, setback exceptions, and fences. Are you ready for the question? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Duncan.
Thank you all very much.
Easy breezy.
Okay.
Not quite yet.
No, he's good.
Because
I just want to ask that we ask staff to come back
Right.
to
Okay. Duncan, you got?
Got it.
Or our town manager?
and
Yes,
Mr.
thank you.
Clerk, you have that?
Yes.
All right. Moving into the general agenda. Town Manager Tony, first item, please.
Yes, there are 4 items on the general agenda, which is our normal action of business. The first item is Carrboro Community Survey 2024 results. And our Community Engagement Director, Catherine Lazorko, will introduce our survey results speaker.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are here tonight to present the results of the Carrboro Community Survey. This survey serves as a consumer report card for the town of Carrboro. Residents rate their quality of life, their satisfaction with services, and perceptions of local government. Town of Carrboro leaders have conducted the biennial survey since 2016 to inform strategic planning and budgeting decisions. Jason Morado from ETC Institute, the consultant that conducted our survey, is here to present the results. Jason?
Thanks, Catherine. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jason Morado. I'm with ETC Institute, and we're a marketing research firm that specializes in conducting community surveys for local governments And we just finished conducting a community survey for the town of Carrboro. So today I'm going to walk through the key findings from the survey. The full report is very detailed and comprehensive, so today I'm going to kind of walk through the key highlights. Oops. Just a little background about ETC Institute. We're based in the Kansas City area, but we're a national leader in providing market research for local governments. We've been doing this type of work for over 40 years, and in the last 10 years alone, we've conducted more than 1,000 communities all across the country, and that includes a lot of communities across the state of North Carolina. So this is really the type of work that we specialize in. This is just an overview of what I'll go through today. I'll go over the purpose and methodology of the survey. I'll walk through the key findings, kind of summarize our main takeaways from the survey, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions as well. So there are several reasons to conduct a survey like this. One is to get an objective assessment of how satisfied residents are with major town services, and to determine what residents feel are the top priorities for the community. We're also able to measure trends from your previous survey. We changed the questions a little bit this time, but most of the questions on this year's survey were the same ones we asked on the previous survey in 2021. That way we can measure trends over time. And then we're also able to compare your results with other communities across the country. So this survey was administered by a combination of mail and online to randomly selected residents throughout the town. And that mail-online combination is our standard methodology for these types of surveys. We received 407 completed surveys, so we had a good response. The goal was to receive at least 400. And the results of the 407 surveys at the 95% level of confidence has a margin of error of plus or minus 4.8%. Essentially, that means that if we conducted the survey the same way 100 times, 95 times the results would be plus or minus 4.8% from what we're reporting. So even for a statistically valid survey, the results are never perfect, but the margin of error is small. So here we have a map of Carrboro. The red dots are households that completed a survey, so we had a good distribution throughout the town. And as we were administering the survey, we made sure that the demographics of survey respondents reflect the actual population of Carrboro, especially for key demographic areas such as age, race, ethnicity, and gender. So here's what we learned from the survey. We found that residents have a very positive perception of Carrboro. 97% of survey respondents rated Carrboro as an excellent or a good place to live, and 91% rated Carrboro as an excellent or a good place to raise children. We also found that satisfaction with town services is much higher in Carrboro than other communities. You rated significantly above the U.S. average in all 33 items that we rated. We'll look at this in more detail in a little bit, but there are a couple areas that especially stood out. One is that when it comes to the overall quality of town services, you rated 33 percentage points above the U.S. average. And that's probably the most important question on the survey, because here we're asking residents to take into account all of the services that you're providing and really give an overall satisfaction rating for how well you're doing. And then one of the areas where you rated the farthest above the U.S. average is customer service provided by town employees, where you were 39 percentage points above the U.S. average. And then we found the top overall priorities are housing and community services, transportation infrastructure, and economic development. And we'll look at that in more detail in just a little bit as well. So I mentioned that residents have a very positive perception of Carrboro. This was the very first question on the survey. And here we're asking residents to rate their perceptions of Carrboro in a number of different ways. You can see the dark blue are ratings of excellent, the light blue is good, the gray is neutral, and we interpret neutral as average or meeting expectations. It's a rating of a 3 out of 5 on a 5-point scale, so it's not a bad rating. And then the pink are those who gave a rating of below average or poor. So you can see the positive ratings far outweigh the negative. If you look at the top of this chart, almost everyone who responded to the survey rated Carrboro as an excellent or a good place to live. You also received very high ratings for the overall quality of life in Carrboro. Carrboro as a place to raise children, and Carrboro as a place that's welcoming and inclusive to all. On this question, we asked residents to rate major categories of town services. So here we're asking residents to rate these areas at the big picture departmental level. And then later on in the survey, we asked about some more specific areas within some of these categories. So again, the blue are the positive ratings, the gray are kind of average in the middle, and the pink are negative. So overall, the positive ratings far outweigh the negative. The areas with the highest levels of dissatisfaction were public parking, planning, zoning, and inspection services, and housing and community services. But even for those areas, you can see there are far more positive ratings than negative. The highest rated areas, if you look at the top of the chart, were fire services, public works, recreation and cultural programs, police services, and parks and recreation facilities. We also asked residents to rate various other key indicators of town services. If you look at this top row, 82% of respondents rated the overall quality of services provided by Carrboro as they're either very satisfied or satisfied. And that's compared to only 3% who are dissatisfied. And again, that's one of the most important questions on the survey. If you look at that second row, most respondents are also satisfied with the overall quality of customer service provided by town employees. And if you look at that third row, 53% are satisfied with the value they receive for town tax dollars and fees. Now that might seem like a low number compared to some of the other ratings, but that's actually much higher than most other communities. And you'll see that in a little bit when we look at the benchmarking comparisons. We asked residents how safe they feel in Carrboro, and you can see very, very few residents feel unsafe in any of these scenarios, which is the pink bar, only about 1% feel unsafe. The vast majority feel safe in their neighborhood. Just overall, they feel safe in Carrboro, feel safe in shopping and dining areas, and in town parks and facilities. So I mentioned earlier that satisfaction with town services is high in all areas of Carrboro. So here again, we have a map of Carrboro, and what we did here is broke the results out by census block group. So these are fairly small areas, and this tells us if residents in different parts of the town have different perceptions of Carrboro or rate services differently. This map is for the overall quality of town services, and you can see the entire map is blue. There's a few sections that are in dark blue, which is the highest possible rating. So this tells us that residents in all parts of Carrboro are satisfied with the overall quality of town services, and it means you're doing a great job providing services equally throughout all parts of the town. This map is for how residents feel about Carrboro as a place to live, and you can see the entire map is dark blue, which is the highest possible rating. So residents throughout the town feel Carrboro is an excellent place to live. And then we have the same thing for Carrboro as a place to raise children. Residents in all areas gave very high ratings. So I mentioned earlier that satisfaction with town services is much higher in Carrboro than other communities. You rated significantly above the U.S. average in all 33 areas that we compared. And by significantly higher, I mean 5% or more above the U.S. average. In most cases, you'll see it's much, much more than that. So for these next few charts, the dark blue lines are Carrboro residents who are either very satisfied or satisfied. The light blue line are the satisfaction ratings for residents in the Atlantic region, which includes the state of North Carolina as well as some surrounding states. And then the gray bar are the satisfaction ratings for residents from all across the U.S. And this is based on a national survey that ETC Institute conducts with randomly selected residents all across the country on an annual basis. So this first chart's for perceptions of Carrboro. If you look at the top row, you can see that 97% of respondents rated Carrboro as an excellent or a good place to live. And that is just about double the national average of 48.5%. Over 90% rated Carrboro as an excellent or a good place to raise children. You can see the national average is barely over 60%. And then if you look at that third row, 83% of respondents feel that Carrboro is a community that's advancing racial equity. And you can see that the regional and national average are at only 45 to 46%. So here are comparisons for other key indicators. If you look at that top row, almost 82% of respondents rated Carrboro the overall quality of services as either as very satisfied or satisfied. You can see that's over 30 percentage points above the national average. One of the areas you rated the farthest above the national average is customer service from town employees. You have a 78% satisfaction rating, which is just about double the national average. And then if you look at that bottom row, 53% are satisfied with the value they receive for tax dollars and fees. which that rate's lower than some of your other areas, but you can see that the regional and national average are barely over 30%. So 53% is actually a very good number for that question. Here are comparisons for major categories of town services. In all 6 areas, your ratings are significantly above the national average. That includes fire, police, public works, communication, transportation, and infrastructure. For stormwater management, your ratings are a little below the regional average, but still far above the national average. And then when it comes to public safety, in all 5 areas, your ratings are significantly above the regional and national average. And you can see this includes a variety of different police and fire services. And then when it comes to how safe residents feel in the community, you can see your ratings are far above the regional and national average when it comes to the overall feeling of safety, how safe residents feel in shopping and dining areas, and also how safe they feel in parks and facilities. Here are comparisons for maintenance, and in all 6 areas, your ratings are significantly above the regional and national average. And you can see this includes a variety of different types of maintenance-related services. And for communication as well, in all 4 areas, your ratings are significantly above other communities. And this includes everything from the availability of information about programs and services to keeping residents informed and the ease of locating information on your website. So we also compared these results to your previous survey. Overall, the satisfaction ratings are similar to what they were in 2021, which is a good thing because the ratings were very high in 2021. And also, most communities that we've surveyed have had an overall decrease in satisfaction compared to the last few years. Now, here are the areas with among the biggest increases and decreases in satisfaction since the 2021 survey. Some of the biggest increases were related to Carrboro as a community that's advancing racial equity, the overall quality of fire services, the availability of cultural arts and activities and arts, enforcing traffic laws, and then the availability of festivals and community events. Some of the bigger decreases since the last survey are the availability of parking downtown, public parking, value received for tax dollars and fees, expanding and preserving affordable housing. Value for tax dollars and fees and affordable housing have gone down across the country over the last few years in satisfaction, so it's not a surprise that those are on the list. And then the ease of driving in Carrboro. That's another area, anything related to traffic flow or ease of driving, ratings have gone down compared to 2020 and 2021 because people are just more active now than they were back at that time when we were still in the pandemic. So now we'll look at the top priorities. We saw earlier how satisfied residents are with major categories of town services. As a follow-up question, we asked which of these services are the most important. So the most important, according to residents, are parks and recreation facilities, housing and community services, transportation, infrastructure, police services, and economic development. And this is something we call the important satisfaction rating. This analysis is based on 2 different types of data, which we've seen already. First, we ask residents how satisfied they are with services, and then we ask which services are the most important. So the idea behind this is that those items that have a combination of low levels of satisfaction, but at the same time are the most important, should be the highest priorities to focus on. So as we go through these, the areas in pink are the highest priority, the yellow are kind of the next level of priority, and then the pink are a medium priority, either because the importance is relatively low or the satisfaction is high, or a combination of both. So this first chart's for major categories of town services. You can see the top priority is housing and community services. The next highest priorities are transportation, infrastructure, economic development, and public parking. This is specifically for housing services. There are only 3 items we rated here, but there were 2 of the 3 that really stood out as the highest priorities. That's the availability of housing options by price, and then efforts to expand and preserve affordable housing. This table is for transportation-related items. The highest priority is the availability of downtown parking. The next highest priorities were the availability of sidewalks, the availability of greenways and multi-use paths, and then the ease of walking and biking in Carrboro. And then when we look at recreation, parks, and cultural resources, The highest priority is walking and biking trails. That's consistently a high priority in other communities across the country as well. The other highest priorities are the availability of diverse cultural events and then maintaining town parks. Then when we look at public safety services, there's nothing here in pink or yellow because the satisfaction ratings are very high across the board, so there's really no areas of major concern. But having said that, the highest priorities are the overall effectiveness of the police department and the respectfulness of police personnel towards residents. Then when we look at maintenance, the highest priorities are efforts to mitigate draining and flooding in public areas, the accessibility of public areas and facilities for persons with disabilities, maintaining the maintenance and cleanliness of streets and public areas, and then the maintenance of downtown. And then when it comes to communication and engagement, the top priorities are the level of public involvement and decision-making, efforts to keep residents informed, the quality of transparent, trusted, and clear town communications, and then the availability of information about town programs and services. So that's everything that I had. Just a quick recap. We saw that residents have a very positive perception of Carrboro. There's a lot of examples of that throughout the report, but what I especially stood out were the high ratings for Carrboro as a place to live and as a place to raise children. We rated much higher than other communities in all areas that we rated, with overall quality of town services and customer service being a couple of areas that really stood out. And then those top overall priorities based on that important satisfaction table we looked at were housing and community services, transportation infrastructure, and economic development. So with that, if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Council members, are there any questions at all? Councilmember Prasad and then Councilmember Haven O'Donnell.
Thank you for your work on this and for the presentation. I'm excited to see many of these results. Kind of want to dive deeper into one of the things that consistently comes up for me is starting a business in Carrboro being a pretty, I think one of the areas that we rated a little bit lower. Is there any significant things that pop up around that that area off the top of your mind?
Right. I'm sorry, for which question were you?
Mostly around economic development, looking at like starting a business in Carrboro, all that fun stuff.
There was a question later on in the survey where we dug a little deeper about that. A couple of the areas that were rated as the most important were access to shopping and new commercial development. Those were the two that residents rated as the most important from about 5 or 6 different items that were included. So.
All right, thank you. That was helpful. Aside from that, just again, thank you for all the work. I think I feel pretty cool with most of these results. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason. A couple of questions. One that is not based on what I've seen, which is the town of Carrboro has 2 comprehensive plan pillars. One is race equity, and the other is climate and environmental action. Were there any questions that looked at or elicited any kind of responses about climate and environmental protection, conservation, or preservation, given the amount of effort that we've been putting into that area?
You know, I don't think we really got into that too much on the survey. That's something to consider for future surveys. Most of these questions were one we've asked in previous years so that we can compare the results. We could always add new questions, but then we kind of need to take something out so the survey doesn't get too long. So this year we didn't really focus on that, but that's something that could be included in future surveys.
Well, given that, we're in a climate crisis, I think it's kind of important. And because, we have, for example, Green Neighborhood Initiative that is engaging community members to be ambassadors for, not only environmental conservation and protection, but also climate resiliency and mitigation. So, yeah, that would be one thing I would really
Yes, council member, I wanted to point out that in our survey instrument is included in your packet. And in the very first section, which is titled Quality of Life, we include 2 questions to get at those pillars. One is as a community advancing racial equity, and the other is as a community advancing climate action. So we do have data from those 2 points, data points, and I think it was fairly high, but we could get the exact numbers.
I guess
for
what
you.
I'm looking for is drilling down to, the level of work that we're starting to engage community with in climate resiliency and mitigation and environmental protection. So I realized that was under quality, and I think that actually is one of the reasons that the number is as high as it is, and that adds to satisfaction. So I wanted to ask about the areas with that were weaker, and I don't know, a couple of slides have it in different ways. Looking at affordable housing, value received for town tax dollars and fees, public parking, could you go,
Yeah, I think maybe let's go a little earlier.
It was bulleted out, the one I'm thinking of.
Well, here's value for taxes. We showed a couple slides. This is one of them. I don't know if you're thinking of that or more of the important satisfaction with the colors.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
It was bulleted. But the reason I asked this is, do you think that affordable housing came up because we tax ourselves to be able to pay for affordable housing, and is it that we haven't maybe made the inroads that the community expects? I mean, I want to understand that more, because we continue to tax folks to have money for affordable housing, but if affordable housing is still coming up, then we're somehow not getting the message of how complicated this is. And
yeah, I mean, this is really on everywhere, just about every survey across the country the past couple of years. Affordable housing has been a really high priority. And satisfaction levels have gone down more so than we used to see. So I think there's a lot of things that factor into that. I wouldn't necessarily say you're not doing a good job, but it's just something that's really on top of people's mind all across the country right now.
Mm-hmm. But where it says value received for town tax dollars,
right?
You see what I'm saying? I'm wondering if folks are saying, well, we're taxing ourselves, for affordable housing and for stormwater, but then again, these are 2 things that we still think are weak.
Right.
And to me, it's I think that's a very important thing, to be able to have a communication with the community, because I think that we're working at it.
Right.
Your dollars are working for it. So I wanted to bring that forth. Additionally, I just wanted to underscore that I was surprised that the public parking and the availability for downtown public parking. I think one of the things that when reading it, that spoke to me is maybe we need to consider the survey results ahead of our proposed paid parking initiative and get more authentic community participation and input. At least go forth and with a clear piloting of the paid for parking and evaluate as we go, because these survey results do indicate that we don't necessarily know what folks are really thinking and how they feel. And I was kind of surprised that it shook out quite that way. I think that's the only other. The other point I wanted to make was that the town of Carrboro, we had a civic engagement program, the Carrboro Citizens Academy. And I would recommend, after seeing the recent survey results, that we reestablish and recommit to having that for our citizens. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Frey.
Thank you. Just wanted to say thanks very much for making us all feel great. These are some lovely numbers, and just a shout out to our town staff who deserve 100% of the credit for those numbers. Do you mind bringing up the sort of importance weighted?
Yeah, for which
That one's fine. Something I just wanted to call out here. I think in addition to just the rank, could you help me interpret the important satisfaction rating column? I'm trying to understand, did people collect, does this actually mean that I should interpret those relative to each other so that housing and community services was felt to be twice as important satisfaction, weighted as economic development, or are those numbers not meant to be compared to one another?
they are meant to be compared to one another, but I don't know if I would look at it as twice as much necessarily. The formula is in the report. There's several steps to it.
Thank you.
Basically, anything with a number of 0.2 or above is in the pink area. That means either high levels, some combination of low levels of satisfaction, high importance. If it's between 0.1 and 0.2, then it's in the yellow, and if it's under 0.1, then it's in the green. So.
Got it. So it's relative to sort of some standard thresholds that are sort of designed to highlight whether anything rises above a common threshold of importance and satisfaction.
Right. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. It gives us, we have all that good word for town staff, but it lets us know what we need to focus on.
Thank you, Councilmember Frey. Oh, Councilmember Merrill.
I'm going to break with tradition.
Break with tradition.
And say something. Thank you for the information. I love numbers. I love charts. So I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to say how great it is to see such impressive satisfaction numbers, and to echo Councilmember Frey's point that all that credit is due to town staff. And I just wanted to thank them again for all the work they do day in and day out. That's why these numbers are so high. So thanks.
Anyone else? Yes. So I had one question. For the community survey, open-ended comments, there were many. And so there were those three main questions that we focused on there. Why doesn't anyone in your household ride a bicycle? What changes would you like to see in downtown Carrboro? What do you think are the most significant issues facing Carrboro today? So that's where the open-ended comments of people answering those questions. Has there been any consideration to flipping some of those questions or doing something different with the questions? I guess I should ask, not Jason, but Ms. Lazorko. Not that they're bad questions, but I mean, switch up periodically maybe in the questioning, or I mean, you know more about the background of the survey than I do, but that was just something that I was wondering about.
A really good observation, and I can say that the bicycle question I think has been consistent, that we have that. If you don't ride, why
do you not ride?
Not, but a couple of the open-ended questions are new. And that was a conversation that we had with the management team and our chief race and equity officer to, really kind of add more questions that kind of give more of the voice of people. And so I think it's very interesting to have these two additional questions. Did you find the comments interesting?
Oh, it was just an observance. I mean, it comes from the management team and staff. I mean, what do I know about that? I mean,
we didn't have as many open-ended questions in the last survey.
Okay.
So this is a change.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Any other questions, council members? I think we just have to receive it.
Yeah.
There's nothing else with it. Thank you so much, both of you, Jason and Ms. Lazorko. Thank you.
both.
Thank you.
And I will just follow up and mention that the results are posted on our website, and we'll be announcing the results and providing links to the public if anyone likes to drill down and look at data more closely.
Oh, Councilman Passat.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You just brought a question to my mind. I just to be sure I'm on the same page. This will be posted, of course, and it's great. Will it also be posted in other languages, or is there some kind of form of interpretation translation that's going to happen in order to adhere to, some of our language policies?
We had not planned to translate this document. There are materials that will be available for translation. The summary of the report for sure, and all of our news flashes are available on our website, which offers translation options. But it's a good question, and we're starting to move there. So thank you for holding us to that.
Yeah, no, thank you for the summary. I think that would be a great idea. What I would also suggest, if it's at all possible, maybe this presentation be used as kind of like not just a summary that everyone can read, but maybe this is super helpful to kind of digest a lot of these things. So if something similar to that, 1 page or 2 pages, whatever can be done with the presentation into multiple languages, I think that's also a great way, because this is a pretty heavy document.
Yes,
I don't
yes.
watch like there's just a lot, right? But I think the summary is great, and either a 1, 2, maybe 3 pager of what we presented, something similar to that in multiple languages, I think meets also kind of the need for folks to be engaged and respond to one of the things that the community service has around being able to make decisions and be part of that communication.
I appreciate the suggestion. We'll do that.
Nice.
Yes.
The executive summary will come out in multiple languages, probably, or something along those
We
lines.
start a commitment in Spanish for sure, and then also we can make it more of a graphical visual representation that isn't all words, but more along the lines that what you're seeing in the PowerPoint.
Yeah, more along the lines, like, because of course some folks are very visual, and also there's a lot. I don't know that the huge, massive commitment it is to not just translate one document to one language, but multiple. And I understand we're in the process of putting that out, so I don't want to say do it all now, right? But I do think a visual, something that can be in multiple languages, not too word heavy or whatever. You're also the communications secretary, so I don't need to tell you how to do your job. Yeah, I would definitely appreciate that. And again, I thank you and the rest of the team and staff here at Carrboro, because y'all are the ones that made that possible. And I just want to make sure that everybody in our community is able to honor your work as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Manager Tony, next item.
Next item, item number 2, is an update on the downtown area plan and kickoff and schedule. This is our planning director, Ms. Trish McGuire.
Welcome, Trish.
Everybody. I just have to go to a. Where are you guys? Okay. I don't want to get in the way of the next agenda item, so I'll be quick.
What is it, Owassa? Owassa.
I never get to say that. Thank you very much for your time this evening. I appreciate the chance to update you on this really important project for the town. It's been a while coming, and we're really excited about jumping in. I'm going to just go over a couple of things: the policy context for this project, the process and the award very briefly, the outline of this project, and then our information hub where we will be telling people about the project and engaging with information. So this is a project that does come out of our comprehensive plan. There are 2 chapters that really speak to the creation of a downtown area plan, and this project derives from both of these. So it's from Chapter 7, our economic development chapter, and Chapter 9, our land use chapter. We did an RFP last year, which we didn't get any responses from. We did follow that up with an RFQ, and we did get 7 responses to it. We have selected and contracted with Freeze and Nichols Incorporated and their subconsultant team, the Pritchett Steinbeck Group, to conduct
carry out the work for this project. It's going to be is jumping off, and it's going to carry through June of 2025. It's going to include a number of tasks and activities, including the consultant team touring the town and reviewing all of our materials, the context, the existing conditions, our data about the buildings we have, examining the built environment, et cetera, engaging with our community, both individuals, larger groups of community members, advisory boards, you all. And we're going to be doing that in a variety of ways, and virtually and in person. They're going to develop a community survey. We're going to use a website that will not be the town's website for the project itself, and there's going to be a kickoff videos that we'll be doing with the team. The deliverables for this project include a downtown area plan, and that's going to include a number of things: land use plan recommendations for the downtown and the area that we've incorporated into this project, which does include the Jones Ferry Road corridor. That was a recommendation of the plan, and we were able to make that part of the scope of this work. Information about property redevelopment in these areas, streetscape recommendations, building appearance standards, information on transportation and infrastructure improvements, and then an implementation action program for the downtown area. We've set up a page right here, Downtown Area Plan. It's going to be our information hub for the project, and right now it's has very minimal information, but we're going to be rolling out more information very soon. Our launch is coming. We're going to have our sort of soft launch events at the end of this month and early in July, and then there'll be more engagement with the community and, as I said, with you and with the information about our downtown. So very excited about this project. We will, of course, use all of our channels for engagement with the community, as well as the information and the strategies that we use because of Inclusive Carrboro. I think I've got time for questions if you have any. And I really appreciate your support for this project.
Pretty fast. Thank you, Ms. McGuire. Council members, question? Councilmember Haven on down.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
This is a long
You're
time
most
coming. I
welcome.
know the Economic Sustainability Commission has been, eager to see this unfold, and I think it's very exciting. One of the key elements of having a consultant work with us is, looking forward to the potential for revenue generation from our downtown. So it's a very exciting time to have this happen. And just thank you to the staff, and make sure to thank John Hartman Brown for his work with you.
I will absolutely be doing that. Yeah, we're excited to have the opportunity to do this. It'll be it was, the last time we engaged on the downtown was in 2001, really extensively. That's when our downtown vision was done, right before 9/11, actually, which is really kind of shocking to remember the passage of time that way. But that was
Charette, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember.
So it is an exciting time for us to be undertaking this work, and look forward to jumping in. And I'm super excited to have all of your participation and that of the rest of the bunch.
Thank you. We received this information.
Next item is item number 3, update on OWASA. Update, I believe Mel Kramer and Elmira Mangum are here.
Welcome, Ms. Kramer.
Thank you.
Mr. Bone.
Bruce is going to kick things off.
Bruce Bone.
Good evening, Mayor Foushee, council members, Manager Tony, and members of the community. Thanks for inviting us to present at your annual present our annual update. On behalf of OWASA's board, we want to thank the town council for reappointing our board member, Mel Kramer. I'm Bruce Bohm, chairman of OWASA, and with me is Mel, as you know, and Elmira Mangum. Elmira won't be able to present now. She has a problem with her eyes. Tonight, we'll present our annual update, and the topics will include OWASA's proposed 2025 budget, an update on PFAS and the actions that OWASA is taking regarding PFAS, an update on the Western Intake Partnership, information on our diversity and inclusion program, and Todd Taylor, OWASA's executive director, will provide an update on the drinking water service line inventory regarding the 2023 EPA lead and copper rule revisions. Starting with the budget, the Board of Directors continues to work with staff on the fiscal year 2025 budget. OWASA is committed to providing a high level of service to our customers, and we regularly look for opportunities to be more efficient. Financially, however, there are a few challenges in the years ahead. Approximately half of the OWASA annual budget is invested in making improvements to the community's water and sewer system, primarily to repair and replace existing infrastructure and ensure the reliability and resiliency of the water and sewer services in the community. The other half is used for operations and maintenance of the entire system and to ensure that our essential services are available around the clock to serve the community. As you know, OWASA is exclusively funded by rates and fees that we charge for our services. Drinking water use by the community for the last several years has been about the same as it was 30 years ago, even while the number of OWASA customers has grown by more than 80% over the same time period. This remarkable achievement is beneficial to the community in many ways. However, with costs increasing and sales volume remaining flat, there's pressure to raise rates on water and sewer services to pay for the increasing expenses and to invest in projects to ensure reliable operations of the OWASA system. The draft fiscal year 2025 budget includes funding for some of these projects for which further delay would be very costly or detrimental to utility operations. The Board of Directors held a public meeting on May 9th and invited community feedback on the proposed budget and rate increases, but none were received. If approved as proposed, the rates would increase the typical OWASA household bill by about $12.30 per month, and it'll go into effect October 1st of this year. The rate increase is proposed to advance the most vital and timely investments in community infrastructure, operations, and people to ensure a resilient and sustainable future for our community's utilities. Projects supported by the proposed 5-year capital improvements budget would achieve ambitious goals for water treatment, including enhanced reduction of PFAS from the drinking water. That'll be discussed in detail later. Other important investments include included in the budget are 9.5 miles of water line replacement to improve the resiliency and reliability of our water delivery system, and construction of a new drinking water clear well, which is a critical part of our water treatment infrastructure. During its most recent inspection, the clear well was identified as having a significant deficiency. The proposed budget does not include additional near-term investment in the Western Intake Partnership, but OWASA intends to continue to participate in the partnership, but defer further investment until nearer to the time when we'll actually need the water. Finally, the Care to Share program remains a helpful lifeline for residents having trouble paying their OWASA bill. OWASA is in the process of increasing the level of funding assistance and accessibility. OWASA customers can sign up to donate to Care to Share at owasa.org or by calling OWASA customer service at 919-537-4343. Okay, and now Mel will talk about PFAS in some detail.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mel Kramer. Thank you very much for reappointing me, and it's really nice to see all of the pride flags. It's just a very affirming space. I'm going to give a short update on PFAS, and then I'm sure you'll have questions. So you've probably heard that the EPA put out PFAS regulations on April 10th, and OWASA has been planning for that for a long time, even in advance of that announcement, and budgeting for the construction of an enhanced water treatment process to significantly reduce PFAS levels in our drinking water. We will be piloting PFAS reduction technology. One of those is called the granular activated carbon and ion exchange, which I'm sure Todd could tell you more details about, to find the most effective and affordable way to remove PFAS from the drinking water. This is super expensive. So the estimated budget for this is $75 million, and about 40% of our proposed rate increase is just going for that. Complete design and construction of a more sustainable system of reducing PFAS levels in our drinking water could take as long as 4 to 5 years. We are testing different kinds of something called powder activated carbon, and that is to reduce it in the short term while they work on more long-term solutions. There is a lot of communication that's going out about this. There's an information hub on the OWASA website called PFAS and Your Water. And it also provides updates on the progress to reduce the PFAS. You can look at the levels year by year and see where they are in the community at the various testing places. OWASA also plans to host a Q&A this summer about PFAS called PFAS Q&A. And they will be bringing together local experts to discuss this and share with our community. It would be great to have council representation at that meeting. I will forward you the invite when I get it. There's also a quarterly PFAS newsletter if you prefer to get your information by email, and that is called Navigating Your PFAS Questions and Concerns. And you can sign up to receive that newsletter to learn basically every incremental step in this process, which will be quite long. And now I'm going to update you on the parts of our presentation that Elmira was going to update you on, which is the Western Intake Partnership update at Jordan Lake. And a lot of you have been on the council before, so you've heard us do this before, but several of you are new, so bear with me. The Western Intake Partnership includes the following: OWASA, the City of Durham, the Town of Pittsboro, and Chatham County. The proposal is to build a new intake on the western side of Jordan Lake, and that may be built on OWASA-owned property in Chatham County, along with transmission lines and pump stations. The goal right now is like 2031, so we're like 6-7 years away. They're doing preliminary engineering and permitting. Because we're not going to need the Jordan Lake water soon, OWASA has currently limited their investment, and that's a conversation for future OWASA years. And they're not going to be part of the initial design and construction efforts, but we expect that there will be investments made in the future. And now I would like to introduce Paul Slack, OWASA's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Specialist, who is going to provide a brief overview of the continued DEIB work.
Hello, my name is Paul Slack. I've been at Orange Water and Sewers. I've been Orange Water and Sewer Authority's Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Specialist since August of 2023. Before I was at OWASA, I spent more than 10 years working in education, both as a teacher and a DEI practitioner for several schools across several different states. Thank you for inviting me to speak today. I hope that my presentation communicates the urgency and the importance that OWASA has dedicated to its DEIB work. Since starting at OWASA, I've been actively engaged in understanding the dynamics, personalities, and practices within OWASA and assessing how they interact with our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging program. Early on, I conducted a listening tour with OWASA employees across the organizational hierarchy in attempts to gain insights into our strengths and areas for growth. One of those strengths is our guiding principles. Between 2022 and 2023, the leadership at OWASA met to outline a set of beliefs that would guide our DEIB work here at OWASA. That work eventually became our guiding principles. While these principles predate my time at OWASA, I've appreciated how much value they hold in expressing the importance of DEIB to OWASA. I'd like to take a minute to share 2 of our 9 guiding principles with the council. While all of them are important, the 2 of them that I'm going to read are particularly critical to share today because they paint a clear portrait of the way that OWASA sees this work. The first I'll share is our second guiding principle. It states, OWASA's DEIB program aligns with and supports our vision, mission, and values. Secondly, I'll share our 9th guiding principle, which states, We are committed to continuously improving in DEIB and assessing our progress and opportunities for growth. To me, these two statements make up such an important basis for our DEIB work here. It's critical that we communicate that our DEIB work is in alignment and supportive of our mission and vision. This gives us a mandate to continue this work in perpetuity. And our continuous commitment and assessment is a reminder that this work is always ongoing. There is no end point, and therefore we will be in constant pursuit of increasing the diversity, the equity, the inclusion, and the belonging in our organization. These 9 principles set a strong foundation for valuing and prioritizing the work here at OWASA as critical components of our mandate to deliver safe drinking water to the residents of Orange County. Another key aspect of our DEIB program is the mandatory annual training that all employees must attend. These trainings have been focused on many different topics over the years, but this year we decided to focus on defining what DEI programs are and are not in order to combat the misinformation being spread online and in the media. We also focused on the ways to both recognize and respond to bias and microaggressions while at work. We wanted everyone to understand the urgency of responding to microaggressions instead of dismissing them or allowing them to continue uninterrupted due to the uncomfortableness of these conversations. I also want to point out that our board undergoes DEIB training yearly as well. I like pointing this out because it is another indicator of how important this work is to everyone involved with OWASA. In the upcoming year, we will offer different tracks for employees to explore differentiated DEIB trainings related to their various interests. Through these trainings, we will continue to build the skills of our employees and host meaningful discussions to facilitate growth and learning here at OWASA. All this work has culminated in OWASA preparing a DEIB action plan. While this plan is still in draft form right now, we plan to finalize it in the coming weeks. The listening to our reference when I began, alongside informal interactions with countless employees and industry best practices, provided valuable perspectives that have informed the framework of this draft. Our goal is for this action plan to serve as a roadmap for our DEIB work over the next 2 to 3 years. Through the guidance of this plan, we aim to update policies and practices to enhance the employee experience and benefit our customers' interactions with OWASA. By incorporating insights from employees at all levels and across various departments, we are working to ensure that our efforts are representative and impactful. We recognize that the DEIB work is an ongoing process that requires dedication and sustained effort. Therefore, we are committed to implementing meaningful changes that foster a more inclusive and equitable environment for everyone here at OWASA. We believe that by prioritizing DEIB initiatives and integrating them into all of our aspects of our operation, we can create lasting, positive change and curate a culture of inclusion and belonging. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now Todd Taylor is going to provide an update about the 2023 EPA lead and copper rule revision, and we can take any of your questions.
All right, well, thank you all. Did want to wrap things up here with just a brief update on our ongoing efforts to ensure drinking water is safe and free of lead. Lead continues to be one of the areas where we receive many questions and concerns from our customers about, especially folks that are moving to the community and may not, understand what plumbing they have in their home and things like that. For over 30 years, OWASA has routinely tested for lead in drinking water, and during that time, we have found no reason for concern regarding lead in our reservoirs, the treated water that's leaving our plant, or in the drinking water distribution system. Based on our historical records and the many decades of experience in maintaining and repairing our pipe system, we are very certain that there are no major sources of lead in the water distribution piping network. However, what has been less certain over the years is the piping material that's been used to connect plumbing in houses and buildings to the OWASA meter. And so over the past year, we've embarked on an effort to improve our understanding of service line materials in our system. We've investigated a sample set of over 4,000 service lines across Carrboro and Chapel Hill, which were thought to possibly have lead based on the age of the structure, among some other factors. We are happy to report that no lead service lines have been found, and we do not believe or expect that any exist in the service area. Later this year, we'll use this data and other sources to publish a map on our website that property owners will be able to access to identify their service line material. We'll continue to offer free water quality testing to anyone who asks, any water quality concerns they have, including lead. And as I said before, our website, owassa.org, is a great resource for learning more about everyone's drinking water. And I'll close by saying I appreciate the opportunity to speak with the council and the community about all the important work we're doing at Owassa, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about the services that we provide.
Anybody else coming up? Thank you so much, Todd, Melody, and Bruce, and Paul, and Elmira. She's here, but just unable to really participate, but she's here. Council members, any questions? Councilmember Haven O'Donnell.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation and for the information. I have, I think, just two questions. One has to do with the PFAS, PFOA concentrations at Cane Creek. How does that affect our water here?
Very good question. We do have very high levels that have been detected in Cane Creek, as many of you all are already aware, and we've been monitoring that since 2018. What we have seen is much lower levels by the time it goes through our treatment process, and we're continuing to work with that. As Mel spoke to earlier, we are looking at some of our chemicals that we use for treatment, particularly powder activated carbon, and looking at different types of carbon and their effectiveness on PFAS as an interim step. It's not the ultimate solution, but we have had a lot of very promising results and have it at very low levels, just not quite to the level we would like to see yet.
Mm-hmm. And so when you say it's an interim step, how far out on the time are you looking at creating a reverse osmosis facility at some point, or what is the end game? In other words, I know Wilmington has done a really great job, but they were under fire to do so. I mean, they really.
Yes, this would be what we would use for the next 4 or 5 years while we construct the final treatment technology that we will select. Right now, we're running pilot tests on 2 different technologies, and that can also be used in combination. Mel spoke about it: granular activated carbon, which is what Wilmington uses, and then ion exchange, which is what is being used in. I'll take that back. I thought I think Pittsburgh is also using granular activated carbon, but they had looked at ion exchange as well. But we looked at both of those last year on just a bench scale, and both had fairly promising results. But we want to scale that up now to a full-size pilot and run it for a longer extended period of time, so that we can make the right decision about which is the most effective. Reverse osmosis, we did look at that early on, but it is orders of magnitude more expensive than the other 2 options.
Yep. But it's probably the most effective.
Depends on how it's looked at. There's a couple of other issues with it. Is very energy intensive, so it runs counter to some of our sustainability efforts, and also the reject water. The water that comes from is very highly concentrated with PFAS, and there's not. It's quite an ordeal to dispose of it in a responsible manner. Let's put it that way.
The EPA scientists are working fast and furiously on this issue. Is there any way to prevent some of the biosolids from being getting into the Cane Creek watershed? Is that something that?
That practice has ceased, as far as what has contributed to this issue has since that process and the use of those fields has ceased.
So this is coming from the industry in Burlington and Greensboro?
From our understanding is that Burlington used those fields in our watershed.
They did.
That's where the contamination came from, but it still exists there even though they're no longer utilizing those fields.
But with the current accumulation, right? Is that coming from the Greensboro and Burlington industry?
No, it's actually it's the residual
It's the
of
residual.
all the years that those were applied on those fields.
Interesting. Okay, so let me go to the next question. The western intake is coming from Paw River to Jordan. Is that?
No, it's actually on the New Hope arm of Jordan Lake.
Got it. Okay, and so is there any problem with in terms of the western intake in the future? Because I remember an old agreement had to be that we couldn't ask for it during an emergency. We had to be part of a compact ahead of an emergency. Has that changed? Is that?
Our practice has been to only take water from outside of our current supplies when we're in an emergency situation. So
Right.
we're in mutual aid agreements with Durham and others. However, we've always had, or for numerous years, had an allocation out of Jordan Lake. So that was, the intent was that when we needed that water, we would begin taking that allocation on a routine basis, not on an emergency basis.
Right.
So access has always been the issue.
We still do that then? We have that agreement with Durham, isn't that?
Well, currently the only way we could obtain our allocation would be through Cary system, through Durham system to our system. So we would still have to operate under those mutual aid agreements to receive water out of Jordan Lake.
Right.
The western intake changes that in that we would be an active participant in the construction of the facilities and then be taking the water on a routine basis.
Yeah, got it. Awesome. And I just wanted to ask, and I don't know whether this is something that's part of outreach that Paul's involved with, and I thank you for your presentation, Paul, but the rate increase, what is it, $12 and whatever, $12.32 a month. Is there any, evaluation of how that's going to affect folks who, are at 30 or 60% AMI in our community?
Well, we're certainly concerned about that. As we spoke about earlier, we have our customer assistance program that can provide some assistance to that. We're actively following, and I hope you all are as well. Through Congress right now, the acronym is LIWAP. It's similar to the LIHEAP program, low income water assistance that came from the federal government during the pandemic. We'd like to see that program extended. We did a tremendous amount of good with that program during the pandemic. However, the money is no longer there, but we would love to see that program in a permanent capacity.
It's Fed dollars that go to OWASA.
Well, it's federal dollars that at least the way that came the last time was it went to the county, and the county social services helped folks that needed the assistance.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
That's a good place to pick up. So I guess as we look at the possible implementation of LIWAP, we hope, through Congress, in the interim, we find ourselves without perhaps the support measures we would hope.
Yes, like I said, we have our Care to Share program, but definitely the need is far greater than what we have. So we would encourage folks to continue to donate to that. And that's really the mechanism that we have to provide assistance right now in the community.
Understood. And then I guess also building on some of what Randy was asking about with the fee increase and the associated costs with the PFAS treatment, that seems like a net good than desirable. Do we have a sense that we have a pretty firm sense of timeline and scale and scope on those facilities? You know, are we in sort of like a wait and see, and potentially we're going to need to sort of many utilities, I would imagine, are in this position, but is addressing this going to, after 5 years, require like another mechanism, likely from somewhere that we don't currently have in play?
Well, anything's possible. New PFAS compounds are being reviewed right now for further regulation, so we don't know if those may come about and require different technologies than what we're implementing. It doesn't seem to. We recently went through part of that process where we help the EPA by testing our water for, you know, a panorama of different compounds that they're looking for. We didn't see a lot of issues with that. We're more troubled by legacy PFAS type compounds, the older ones that have been around for many decades. The schedule's pretty well set on the project. We know we have to be in compliance in 5 years, so we have to make all these improvements, have it online and operational by that time. So we know the schedule's pretty well set. What I'm not confident in at this point in time is the cost. We have done some high-level estimates, but we haven't settled on the technology yet. We don't know all the exact details of what the design is going to entail. What, as you all know, costs are very volatile right now, especially for technological type electronics, pumps, things like that. Very difficult to get our hands on. So some of those kinds of things. Contractors are extremely busy. So it's you know, you don't have a lot of competitive bidding going on right now. So there's a lot of headwinds ahead of us that I wouldn't want to confidently say that yes, this is the final number, but I'm hoping that maybe you know, as we get into this, maybe we find some cost savings in different places that we can hopefully result in a positive reduction in costs. But right now, I'm not confident in those numbers. I think it's going to be in that ballpark, but that's about all I can confidently say right now.
I really appreciate that. Certainly not news to you, but it strikes me, you know, that these are y'all are operating with some large uncertainties, with a heavy constraint with your income and revenue model, and so you know, I think those are two big priorities that it seems to me like that as y'all reach potentially the friction points of your revenue model, just, you know, hit us up. We're here to try and, you know, these are collaborate as much as we can.
Certainly, we appreciate that offer, and we'll definitely probably be taking you up on it.
Yeah, but thank you. I hope we hear from you, as you know, as often as both of our schedules allow.
Hit us up, Councilmember Frey.
Thank you so much. A few questions, some small and then some sort of a little bit more open-ended. I'm looking at the PFAS on your water site here, and I want to make sure I'm understanding sort of the data on values detected. So if I've got this right, the EPA has now provided sort of maximum contaminant levels, which we on average exceed for 2 contaminants for PFOA and PFOS.
That's correct.
Got it. Thank you for that. Could you let me know, I see there's a sort of a trend graph here. Do you happen to know what the time frame of that is? Because I'm trying to understand if this is showing sort of consistent values over years or variability over months. I
think you're looking at our quarterly monitoring data, and we've been doing that since 2018. So it's a pretty good set of data. And the troubling thing is we generally stay in kind of the same level. So we don't see it go up. One of the things we wanted to investigate, was there any seasonality to it? Was there any cyclical type factor going on? And there's just, it's very, very consistently the same amount of PFAS that we're detecting.
In that sediment. Yeah. On a related note, do we have any baseline numbers for PFOA or PFOS in Jordan Lake? And this question is related to the Western agreement.
Don't know those right off, but I know there is, because Cary has their intake there is a robust set of numbers for that, but they're much lower than what we see. As you can imagine, a larger reservoir, larger watershed, those kind of, there's a dilution factor.
Thank you. So now I've got a couple of more open-ended questions, and some of this is for my education, and some of it is also because I imagine that folks who may review this recording afterward can also benefit from hearing it sort of explored. So feel free to sort of elaborate if you like. And my first question was around funding for that PFAS project. Are there any other funding sources that you're examining beyond rates at this time?
Everything we can. We are in a multi-district litigation against the PFAS manufacturer. I'm sure you've heard about the settlements with various manufacturers, DuPont and 3M and some of the others. We are in that group, so we expect that we will get some funding out of the settlement. It will not nearly be enough to cover the cost of the facilities. We are looking at the federal government did put money aside for PFAS treatment, and that's since been handed down to the state. We're looking to see what's the process for accessing those funds. How are they going to distribute them? We have put in for a grant or a loan for the design work right now that we have going on. So we'll see what the results of that are as far as going through the state process. But yes, we are looking everywhere, under the couch cushions, anything we can do to find funding for this. Unfortunately, our main funding source is the bills that we send out.
I know you have to write your budget assuming that you're not going to get anything from those other sources.
Correct.
My other question is sort of the other side of that rate increase. It's a pretty hefty one. We know that your ratepayers are also looking at potential increases from Chapel Hill, from the county. Everybody's costs have gone up. Everybody's looking at their rates and their tax rates. Do you have any data or information on the proportion of your ratepayers who are in a precarious position? In other words, I know you know how many people are participating in Care to Share, or Share to Care. Do you have a sense of what the increased demand on that program might be as a result of this rate increase?
I do not know that. I also don't have we don't collect that kind of data from our customers to know, or any of those kinds of things. I think a good proxy for that would be the folks that are maybe receiving housing assistance, things like that. They're probably the same folks that are having issues with their water bill. But I don't have specifics on that because, like I said, we don't collect that data.
Sure, it makes sense that you wouldn't collect that kind of income data on ratepayers, but do you have sort of other proxy measures you might be able to use, things like frequency of late pay or short pay, folks who are short paying?
Yeah, we can get some of that, but it's challenging because we are very actively pursuing measures to collect. So those things don't persist for long periods of time. Generally, a couple months, and then we're going to be there to shut off the service, and then folks will catch up and then come back in. So it's not chronically late. Typically, what happens is the service gets disconnected, and then they'll have to either pay or they're no longer receiving the service. So it's a bit of a challenging thing to read a lot into those numbers. But there is a portion of our customers we know that have challenges. And one of the other factors that is difficult for us is the number of multifamily residents we have, where there is a degree of separation. We may send our bill to the property manager, However, they're billing the customers, so we really don't have insight into, are there 100 folks in this apartment complex that are really having challenges paying their bill? So there's a lot of difficulty we have in getting a lot of good insight into what the need is out there. But we are bringing the Care to Share program in-house. We have worked through the IFC for a number of years, but we wanted to bring it in-house. IFC had some limitations on the amount of funds that they could distribute every year. We wanted to take that limit, raise some of those limitations. Also, I think will give us more of that detail about who's receiving these benefits and how maybe we can assist them better navigating these difficult times that they're having.
Thank you. Do you know, or if you don't know off the top of your head, do you publish your disconnect rate?
Excuse me?
Do you publish numbers on how many people you disconnect due to non-payment?
We haven't in some time. I know we were putting that out there during the pandemic when it was elevated due to the circumstances, but certainly that's information that we could put out there. But it's typically not. It's not a number that change. Typically is about the same amount of customers each month, even though they're changing from person. It's not the same person. It's different folks around the community. But yeah, we can certainly do that if needed.
Thank you. And then I think this is my last question. Could you give a little bit of context around the way that your rates are structured purely based on quantity of water consumed? So you have some tiers for sewer usage and for water usage that sort of allow you to tier your rates. So you're charging higher rates to folks who use more water, which makes sense. Have you looked into any other approaches to tiering that might assist your customers or that might sort of make that rating a little bit more progressive? Is that something that's legally available to you? What are sort of if you could lay out for me sort of the constraints on how you currently do your rates and what other options are available to you if you're thinking long term about how to make sure that you're able to meet that goal of providing safe drinking water to all of the folks in the service area?
Sure. I will say this is a rate study is something that we're going to conduct in the coming year. So just so you'll know that we're doing that. There are a lot of constraints around rates and how we can administer rates. The tiered system, can have flaws because volume of usage is not necessarily a good indicator of wealth. You could have a large family that's using a lot of water, but they're not wasting, they're not watering the garden kind of thing, so it's a challenging thing to look at, but that rate has done, as you heard earlier, done a great job at promoting conservation and has, we're selling the same amount of water we did in the early 1990s today with twice as many customers. So there's a concern about if we, do we want to really mess with that too much? And there are some novel kind of rate systems that are out there in the world, but can't use them in North Carolina. So it's a challenging circumstance to try to get at this problem, and rates are a really blunt instrument to try and address someone that has a particular challenge paying their bill. If we give everybody in the service area a nickel off of their bill, it doesn't really help that person with that acute issue that if the bill was $1, they still don't have the dollar. So it's a very challenging thing to try and get at this issue through rates.
And we're required to charge the same amount for every customer who buys 4,000 gallons. We can't differentiate on income or value of house or anything like that.
That's what I wanted to get at, is the restrictions that you're under due to state law. All right. Thanks for going on that trip with me. I really appreciate you elaborating on that.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Sada and then Haven O'Donnell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you all for the presentation and for the work y'all are doing in WASA. Just some of the questions I had, Councilmember Frey already touched upon, but I kind of wanted to dive deeper a little bit in one thing. Before I go into the questions that I had prepared, is like this discount rate. Do you know off the top of your head, like what is the percentage or number that we're consistently seeing? I know that it's not the same person, but like you said, that number doesn't tend to fluctuate that much. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, we have several hundred people every month that find themselves in a situation where they may, we're saying that, we're going to come and disconnect your service if you don't make payment.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a few hundred folks, I would say, out of 22,000 customers altogether. So it's not a huge percentage, but there is a definite group there.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And then that drives me to the question, right? We talked about this proposal that is possibly going to give some, if it's passed, there'd be a way of getting some federal funds into WASA. In the meantime, I know that are there other things that y'all are exploring outside of this care to share, or that one shared, the sharing and the caring, right? What are other avenues that y'all are looking into, like in the meantime, right? Because yes, a couple hundred is not a huge percentage out of 22,000, but that is a couple hundred families. And knowing it's not the same people, I'm looking at the more larger impact. I'm very curious, and I would definitely want to explore ways, like Mayor Pro Tem said, the town can help out in this thing. But I kind of wanted to ask, like, what are some other things that y'all are looking into? Are there other things? I'm curious.
Well, the rate study is one. Is there some mechanism a novel idea that we haven't thought of yet? So we want to conduct that and see if there is some potential there. Care to share is our main mechanism for customer assistance, and it's one of the few things we can actually do legally. And one of the things I think about bringing that in-house is maybe get a better grasp on the true need that's out there. Like if I were to say to you now, I couldn't tell you exactly how much money would take care of this problem on a monthly basis. So that to me is a problem in and of itself, because we're just kind of operating in this fog of not really knowing exactly what it is. So I think part of that, bringing it in, we're going to understand a little bit better about what is the actual need out there, and do that over a year, and maybe we'll be able to come back and say it's $425,000 would take care of this problem. And then I think we could have a more intelligent conversation about how do we acquire that funding. But for right now, we know that the care to share funds that we're bringing in are not going to cover, but we would like to find out a little bit more about how many people are not receiving assistance. And so maybe we can get a better grasp on that.
Thanks for that. And then on the care to share level, a follow up. Do you have does the pocket of, like, do you have an estimate of how much money that comes in for that program? Does it fluctuate month to month? Is it like a NPR sustainer kind of thing? What?
Stephen,
Can you come to
Can
the
you
microphone?
come to my, sorry for.
Oh yeah, Stephen Winters is our Deputy Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. Winters. My good friend.
Hi. Yeah, we the customers that contribute, it's $200 to $2,200 a month. We do get annual contributions. Anyone can contribute. You have to be a customer, and we've got around $50,000 or $60,000 in that. And that's built up over the last several years, because during the pandemic, more people started contributing, and they've kept on. So it's about 5% of the customer base contributes a couple $1,000s a month.
Thank you for that. And then kind of switching gears just slightly, forgive me if I got this wrong, but in the initial part of the conversation or the presentation, there was y'all mentioned a hearing to talk about the rate increases, but there was no one gave comment to that. Did I get that right?
Yes, that's correct. We had our public hearing on the rate increase in May, like we do every year, and we did not receive any comments.
I guess my follow-up is what is the mechanism of advertising this? Was there a letter sent to the membership? Was it like, I honestly, quite honestly, didn't even know that was happening myself, and I'm a customer, and I might have just missed it, right? So I'm curious, how is the word out that this is happening, going out into community?
Yeah, I mean, we advertise it just like we do our normal meetings through those channels. We don't do any specific like direct mailing or anything like that around this. But yeah, we're kind of approaching it. We do advertise. We are advertising it in local media, those kinds of things like that it's happening. But we're not doing a whole lot of extra. Around this one that we don't normally do for all of our other meetings.
And the cycle for budgeting is identical every year. So folks who follow us would know that at the May meeting, we always have public comment on the proposed budget.
Gotcha. What are those mechanisms to advertise you said media? Is there like a newsletter?
I'm sure we did social media. I'm sure we did, website. We have some folks that sign up kind of on specific topics. So we have these lists, email lists that we send out for people that are following certain, like PFAS. We have a list of folks that are interested in that, and we put those out there on our website. Those kind of normal channels that we do for basically all of our meetings.
Okay.
And there are several meetings over this past year where people came and gave public comment. So people are looking at the agenda, and we've had meetings with many people giving public comment. So
Okay. No, and that's helpful. I'm trying to understand, right? Because like to me, that just knowing what we just talked about, like definitely there's a need for, and this is something that would impact people like across. I find it interesting that there was no show up for that.
We did too, and normally we do get comments, and this was a large proposed increase. Nobody showed up. Yeah.
You can hear about it on the back end.
I guess, and you know what? I'm just gonna ask this because I always ask this: is it in other languages?
Excuse me?
Is the advertising in other languages or just English?
I'm pretty sure we did the whatever we put out to the media should have been translated, but I don't want to.
No, I mean
100% say that, but we do try to do at least a good job of having everything usually in Spanish and English.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean I thank you, and I know I know why the increase is needed. I kind of get that. I think my thing is how do we find ways of informing community, because we just saw the survey. One of the things that folks want to see is be able to be in decision making. So this is why we have one side folks want to be able to be in decisions, but we have a point where folks could give input on decisions. So I want to make sure that we're connecting those dots and kind of building those bridges so community members know what's happening. Because again, I myself, to be completely honest, I don't follow WASA on social media. Maybe I should. I'm actually going to go follow y'all after
on
this.
TikTok, no.
I don't even have a TikTok. Are you kidding? Is it really a TikTok?
You're not on TikTok. That was a joke.
Oh, that was a joke. Okay. You know what? So you got my hopes up. Anyway, my point being, similar to Mayor Pro Tem, if there's ways that we can support as far whether the council or the town, of ways of getting some of this information out there. I think I won't speak for everyone, but for myself, I would very much be interested in seeing what those kind of ways of supporting are. Definitely want to make sure that our community members, whether it's 200, 100, or 1, being disconnected, I think that's a terrible impact that could be mitigated. So I want to make sure that as a council, as a community, we're doing what we can to support folks. So if any way that comes up, please let us know. And obviously, I'm not going to say our staff will do all the work because I don't have that authority, but definitely bring it up to us so that we can find ways of supporting as we're going through this process. Coming from a household where, when I was a kid, we had our water disconnected and saw how terrible it was, an impact on my family and on my mother when we were trying to get ends meet. Having gone through that and seen the impact of my own family, I can definitely empathize with folks who are seeing it, and I want to make sure that that doesn't happen in our community to the best of our ability.
Absolutely. And thank you for the support.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Passau.
Yeah, I think this was a substantive conversation about needs. I just want to ask if there's a way that working with the town and the town communications, we can help amplify and just have that happen, because the town does have a fairly robust way of getting the communication out and the language access program. So please, think of us as a resource. In addition, going back to, and this is a question I've been asking for a long time, how do we help to inform community about the PFAS, PFOA, what it is, and, if you're saying you hold information center sessions, as I've said before, climate and environment are one of our key pillars. We might be able to help get community engaged and outreach to happen. And I'd love to see that as a program that's developed, because this is critical. I think most people have no idea, and therefore they don't understand a rate increase that is seeking to not only immediately but long-term find a way to solve the problem. So
absolutely, and we are, as Mel talked about, we're ramping up our communications around PFAS, so there would be a lot more out there in the coming months about PFAS.
No more? So I had a question. So we're talking about a rate increase over several years. Is that what I'm understanding for the PFAS mitigation? 3 years, 5? Or
Well, it's 15%. What we've got projected is 15% this year. Next year's 9. Year after that will be 9, and then it goes to 6 and 6.
Okay.
So that's kind of the track we're on right now, unless something changes. We decided this year we would try to take as big a bite of the elephant as we could, knowing that it would give us flexibility in the out years that way, because if it was going to be 12, for several years, it would be a harder thing if we miss the estimate a little bit or something like that in the future years to have to, again, raise rates even higher.
Okay. And so also what I'm hearing from council members is about this intentionality around alerting the public when there are changes. Particularly, this is, could be a big increase. I don't have $12 more to pay for my OWASA bill. I know, again, our communications and engagement department does this amazing job of elevating a lot of things. Now, I see that Mary Tiger has rejoined OWASA as the Director of Community Relations. Now, that's different from your communications person, isn't it? So that's a little bit different.
Yeah, we've restructured
Okay.
into community relations, customer services, and communications are now under that whole community relations department. And so there's communications folks, there's customer service folks, all working together under the umbrella of community relations.
So communications is under
Yes.
Mary Tiger right now. And so I know with the town of Carrboro, we use many different ways to reach the public, traditional, non-traditional. I mean, it runs the gambit. So I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of, if there's an opportunity to work with the town at all, I think Councilmember Haven O'Donnell mentioned that, or, just thinking about better and more ways to reach the public when we have these changes. This is significant. It's a significant rate increase and also important for the public to know why it's important, this rate increase and what it's going to support. And that's the educational piece. So I don't know how much more you guys would do, but I would recommend that, to put a little bit more time and effort into that. Maybe talk to Ms. Tiger about doing that. We do things in certain ways all the time, like, because this is our budget season. We have a public hearing coming up as well, and budget is a big deal. But it tends to fly low under the radar. With people until they get a bill. They'll be like, "When did this happen?" And so those were my recommendations. If there's an opportunity to work with our communications and engagement, or to do something a little different, is what I was suggesting.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for us to collaborate. So I appreciate the suggestion, and we've always had great success working with your staff. So
Okay. So I think all we have to do, council members, is receive this report. And Councilmember Posada has one more question or comment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I just thought of a quick, follow-up. In this community relations new department, and I imagine there's going to be like a work plan and all that fun stuff. I don't need to know all that. I'm curious, is there partnerships that exist with local nonprofits? I mean, you mentioned IFC as... but are there other kind of community partners that y'all consistently interact with that could, similar to the town of Carrboro, we're willing to lend our support, but maybe they could also be a piece of this community engagement? Because I know that our town does that as well. I'm wondering, is that something that y'all already have in place, something considering, new idea?
Yeah, we've had a group of folks, we call them the affordability partners, that we've had a group for some time that kind of works on these issues, not specifically maybe around communications, but I think there's a lot of opportunity there with the town of Chapel Hill, with the county, and some others in the community, Chamber of Commerce, to kind of hit all the various communication networks of those groups and hopefully get.
Perfect. No, I mean, I thank you for that, and I do also want to thank you, and not want to this go unnoticed that I think I mentioned this last year when you did a presentation, but the Carrboro water continues to be the best water that I've ever tasted. So
I think you need to do an advertisement for us. That's what we need.
I mean, never for seriously, like my cousin from Texas that visited 2 years ago still talks about the water in Carrboro. Not kidding. Not kidding. I'm just gonna do a promotion. No, so I mean, I don't want this conversation to overshadow the fact that I very much appreciate all the work that you and your team and everyone is doing to ensure that we have safe, clean, and reliable source of water. My partner's currently in Atlanta, and we know what's happening there. So, thank you. And as always, please let us know how we can help. And if you do need me to do a promotional video, I'll do it for free. Let me know.
That's great.
And we also appreciate the Owasso water wagon that I see around at different community events with the cold
To
water.
have it out at more.
Yeah.
What the indicator is of how good our water is, that brand wine can make great bagels. Can't make a great bagel without great water.
There you go. Proofs today.
Is it true?
Is that it, council
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
How he's still.
You know what?
Get a little water.
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Do we need a break?
We need a
Before
short
the
break.
5-minute
budget. Okay, we're going to recess 5 minutes before the big budget. Town Manager Tony, we're ready for the next item.
Okay, Mayor. Okay, there we are. The fourth and final item is, last but certainly not least, it is the most important item for the evening and for local government. It is the recommended budget that will guide our policy decisions and staff objectives throughout the year, beginning July 1st of 2024 through June 30th of 2025. And so this budget aligns council's priorities, many of which came out of your retreat earlier this year. And it also acknowledges the staff and the great work that staff has done throughout the year and allows us to continue for recruitment, retention of really high level, high functioning staff as well. And so to present the budget today, we have our finance director who's done a great job with a little staff and resources to get it done, Mr. Brett Green. But I also just want to acknowledge the management team, leadership team, Assistant Manager Marie Parker, as well as Anita Jones McNair. She's done a great job of aligning race and equity issues in the budget and keeps all of the departments on task and making sure all things are aligned. So, Mayor, at this time, I'd like to call up Brett Green to give an overview of our budget highlights for this FY25. Also want to acknowledge Gerald Keys here. He's the comptroller. He's played a huge role in this year's budget as well. Did I mention Riley? Riley, assistant to the manager. Yes, Riley as well. So thank you all. Brett.
Welcome, Brett.
All right, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Have 159 pages we're going to try to walk through step by step. So appreciate everyone hanging on. See Friday.
People are leaving over there.
I'm going to open the presentation. We do have that document. It will be available momentarily. Lamar, let me know when I mess this up. All right, sorry.
No problem.
So I had about 6 quotes to start out with. At a time, I'm just going to go to one more near and dear to my heart. Before I get to the quote, I would like to say I appreciate the consideration of the mayor, appreciate the introduction from town manager. Thank you all for entertaining us as council, and really appreciate the staff that is here, including multiple department heads that have put a lot of effort into the development of this budget. So my quote is going to be Roy Williams: use half as many words and they'll hit twice as hard. So that's how we're going to start. Here's our quick walkthrough tonight. As always, I appreciate the third month in a row having me speak to council. I don't think much of this will be new. That was the intent. We were iterating towards a path of a balanced budget for the town of Carrboro for the next fiscal year. We're there. We have the book. It's ready. This is a very, very, very small subset of the book. To outline tonight's presentation, we have only 3 factors. We have 19 slides. 4 of them were from last month. We're at the bottom. We're there. We're going to do a budget. It's going to be effective. It's going to not include rate increases. It's going to serve the town needs and continue on services, if not improve them. It's through, again, the collective efforts of the departments and the town staff that have helped develop this budget, along with aligning with council directives initially identified in prior years and affirmed in February. We have 2 weeks until both the public hearing and the proposal for the adopted budget date on the 18th. So 2 weeks from tonight. After today, we're going to have printed copies. Councilmember Frey will have one in 12 to 48 minutes, depending on how this goes. And they'll be available in hard copy at Town Hall, Century Center, Fire Station 1, Fire Station 2, Public Works, anywhere else, Carmill, anywhere else where any of the residents might connect the town of Carrboro and government together. Additionally, and more importantly, perhaps, we're going to have the documents available online, hopefully by midnight tonight, if not by noon tomorrow. Additionally, working with Kat and as we discussed and engaged with the OWASA team on at-a-glances or other cool things and other ways to connect with maybe folks that weren't involved or included in budget documents in prior years. So we're going to get those communications out this week as well. In accordance with North Carolina statutes, the proposed budget has to sit publicly for 10 calendar days before adoption, which puts us at the 14th of June, if I can math out. I think I can, I hope, for addition, which will put us at Friday, the 14th. Thankfully not the 13th. But again, the proposed adoption date would be Tuesday, the 18th. Additionally, continuously developing ways to solicit a feedback loop. Before, I think Council member Haven O'Donnell pointed this out during the work session. It's not common to have the public hearing and the adoption on the same date. So solicit community feedback up to and including that date. So we're working on channels to facilitate that communication. And again, both the public hearing and the adoption date scheduled for the 18th of June. I apologize for that border, but that if the public can't read that, it says the fiscal year 25 town manager budget goals include aligning with council priorities with budget initiatives, including mainly employee retention, recruitment, well-being, obviously in a climate of recognized mental health awareness, rewriting the land use ordinance, which we already discussed a little bit earlier this evening, addressing affordable housing, programming initiatives supporting race and equity, and environmental protection, 2 pillars the council identified in prior years, and continuing to implement Carrboro Connects throughout the budget process. Lastly, one of the biggest challenges that a previous presenter mentioned is struggling with stagnant-ish revenues and moderately increasing expenses, which is, again, nothing new, presented to council. We presented that in March, April, and May, and now in June. So it is a consideration the town and the finance department is considering, and when we've balanced, we feel reasonably. And again, then the ongoing, what keeps you up at night. Town hall is old. We have new carpet tiles. They're nice. We have new controls. They're nice. We have a new chiller going into Century Center, which is nice. Public Works is in a flood zone. Fire Station 2, Chief Potter's here, and he can correct me when I'm wrong. We have our last payment on that July, I believe. It's in the next fiscal year, and then we're done paying for that. So that will hopefully proactively answer a question why debt services went down a little bit before we deliver 203. That's why debt services go up a lot. But lots of considerations. Again, here, I think I went backwards. To reiterate some of the highlights, these are actually now getting into real numbers. There is a 159-page document ready to be distributed to town council, to the public, to residents, stakeholders, to anyone that wants to give feedback. And it includes a 68 $68.3 million proposed recommended budget across all funds. So that includes special revenue funds, ARPA, land grants, general operations, general fund, capital, which is a decrease compared to prior years, but it's again due to anticipated delivery of 203 project is driving that. If we focus our attention more on the middle bullet, there's a moderate increase on the growth, 5.7%. That's primarily due to property taxes, which is approximately 52 to 55% of the continuing revenue the town receives on an annual basis. The town so far, as we'll see in a later slide, is trending about 4% higher than anticipated from fiscal year 2024 adopted budget. So although that number sounds high, 5%, 6% increase sounds weary for a finance person, it's driven by an already realized 4% increase that we've seen on property taxes for the town for this fiscal year going into fiscal year 2025. So that was the basis of our recommendation for next year. Lastly, again, as prior presenters mentioned, increase in operating expenses, it's a real concern. It's not only inflation, it's not only lack of contractors, it's perceived and potential lack of investment within the town and within different channels and programming that if further avoided could be exponentially more expensive. An example from a prior life I like to use is paving a parking lot. So when you get to a certain point, you can repave a parking lot for $1 a foot. But if you let it degrade a little bit further, it becomes $12 a foot. So in analyzing each departmental budget, there were certain items within each department that were on the brink of becoming to that exponential increase in cost had they not been addressed in the next fiscal year or two. So that's a consideration for a 10% operating expense increase. In addition to, as we've prior stated, investment in town staff, investment in recruitment, investment in the land use ordinance, investment in the staffing study, investment in the compensation study. So other one-time occurrences that are all bleeding into this operating expense increase on the general fund. We have about 4 slides here that actually go into charts and numbers, and they will be made available to council and to the public now, but also for consideration before we meet again and before we actually speak through the adoption of the budget. But here's a breakdown, a simple breakdown of the funds. We won't call it revenues, but so the general operating funds are about $32.7 million. Special revenues, we see staying steady. Capital funds decrease significantly due to the anticipated delivery of 203. Enterprise funds, that increases due to the presentation that Randy led beginning of April on stormwater. So it's offset directly with expenses. But again, that leads us to that $68.3 million recommended budget for this year. Further broken down, again, I'm not sure why the margins are not aligned on this machine, but here we see that breakdown on the property taxes. Again, you'll see in a later slide, which was shown in April and again in May, the 5.7% increase in the ad valorem taxes on property is 5.7% forecasted for next year. Once we take into account where we think that the town of Carrboro will end fiscal year 2024, we think that change is more about a 2.3% conservative relative to Orange County, which was our measure. We're keeping sales tax, again, as we stated last month. We think it will increase. We hope it will increase. We think it's declining slightly. We do think folks are still moving to North Carolina. Folks are buying things in North Carolina. We still have Amazon in North Carolina. So we think we're still going to get a bigger share of the pie, but we're not relying upon that. And then again, other revenues, that 10.8% is also driven by the stormwater adjustment increase fee that was adopted, which is offset on the expenditure side. And then the last line item there is, which might garner further discussion, is that fund balance recommended appropriation for fiscal year 2025 of $4.1 million, which is about $600,000 less than what was presented in April. So the town staff and the finance department and the town management have gone through some iterative efforts to see what costs potentially could be avoided and lower that recommended appropriation from the general fund balance. But town staff still feels it's appropriate, and we'll get to that in a moment. So here we can see the history of the general fund, and this chart requires a little bit of commentary. The blue bar is effectively the general fund operating budget. So this is revenues equals expenses for prior fiscal years. The green bar is how the general fund is built in the bank account effectively, for better or for worse, over time. So the town is solid financially is the point of this slide. The town operates effectively around a $30 million operating budget. The town's fund balance, unassigned general fund balance in relation to expenditures is approximately $20 million, $15 million. Those are big gaps. But that means 50 to 75% of unassigned fund balance related to expenditures. The town's target is 22.5% to 35%. So the town is carrying dollars and getting a 5.38% interest rate return on those dollars, so not insignificant, which is about $18,000 per $4 million every month. But the part of the recommendation for the fiscal year budget 2025 is to spend those dollars back into the community. This chart is the same as last month. We presented on May 12th. It has some green on it, but it's updated slightly to the recommended budget in kind of that middle column for fiscal year 2025. Highlight that here. Again, focusing on the operating budget of $32.7 million. 12% increase year over year. Not dissimilar to neighboring municipalities that have put forth their presented budgets. Moderate, very, very moderate, modest assumptions on revenue, real assumptions on expenses. We feel like we will likely come in under that. It's stated in the budget book that the town oftentimes recommends appropriation from the general fund balance in order to balance the budget, but oftentimes does not utilize the full recommended amount, which you can see from last fiscal year. So in this example, where the town is expected to expend about 40% of the adopted budget from last fiscal year in terms of fund balance appropriation to cover expenses. That being said, that is not an ongoing occurrence the town wants to have happen. But there are reasons, council identified reasons that center around the recommended appropriation of that fund balance in this fiscal year as a one-time expense. Namely around the slides that are in the appendix that we'll get to in a moment, but investment in staff, land use ordinance, downtown study, other small area studies, additional investment in IT infrastructure, et cetera. Debt services, good story. It's lower. This doesn't show year over year, but it's about a 12% decrease from last fiscal year, mainly due to the payoff of Fire Station 2, which I think is bottom middle. 203 is up top right. That's going to be a big in. The chart is not implicitly simple, but tried to break it out to show that for 2 of the 4 obligations the town owes on debt, there are 2 interest payments and 1 principal payment a year. So, said differently, the town has very minimal debt burden, as we discussed, as we walk through in March on the financial model. There's opportunity, if council directs, for an appetite to increase debt burden on the town relative to peers. It's not recommended for next fiscal year until the delivery of the 203 building. And then finally, I believe this is my last slide. This just show contextually where all the departments align and how much the residents are paying for the services that the town provides. So general government is my group, it's town management or the town manager's office, it's human resources, it's all the support staff, town clerk. So look at Lamar over here. Then there's public safety, which is Chief ATAC, Chief Potter that are in attendance tonight. It's it's JG's group of Rec and Parks. It's Trish in planning and transportation. Non-departmental, that's where we've bucketed the anticipated 7% one-time adjustment to existing staff salary, as well as a 3% COLA adjustment. But this just kind of gives a lens onto where the monies go for the town. And I told Patrice I would try to keep it pretty quick because, again, the goal was to be iterative. I do have appendix slides from last time if we want to look at those, but I'll stop it here for now. Welcome any and all questions. And we have many town staff here to support, including everyone that town manager Tony mentioned.
All right. Thank you so much, Brett, for the presentation. We're almost there, aren't we? I need one of those books. Hard copy, please. Council members, are there any questions of Brett? Do you need to see the slides from the appendix at all? I think we've seen them before. Those are slides you previously.
They are republished from last month, correct?
Okay. You have
Oh, we
Mayor
can.
Pro Tem now.
This may not be a shocker of a question for you, Brett. But we did a little bit of tugging on the possibilities around the LUO expenditure, and at our last presentation, we had sort of a projected expense of maybe 50% out the door this fiscal year, maybe 50% next. Is that still reflected in the final recommended budget?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
We didn't move that barometer.
Okay. Thank you.
Sir.
Remember Posada.
Madam Mayor, did we include any parking numbers on this?
Yes.
I miss it.
No.
Okay.
So we increased the parking enterprise fund, which is traditionally funded from a transfer from general fund to parking at $141,000, which has never been incurred. We increased that for the addition of an additional personnel cost up to about $75,000 to $216. Daryl nodded at me. So $216, assuming no revenue. But we did increase the expense side. Again, hopefully ultra conservatively for that line item.
Okay. That'd be great. And similar to the mayor, I also would love a copy. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy, have any questions?
Now, we will get hard copy. Should we want hard copy?
And Brett, could you go into the appendix? I think the slide I'm looking. Next one. No.
Last one.
Is that the last one? So it's the one, I may have missed it. about the partnership to end homelessness IFC. 2% of our, there it is.
Should be
Recommendation to allocate 2% of operating budget to human services. All that's included. So that would be approximately $600,000. And that is up from 274, 280. What is it now?
So we frame this as each penny is approximately 275. So the dedication to the Affordable Housing Fund was 1.5 pennies, so about 437, 442, somewhere in there. So we think this will more than double that. Town's commitment to affordable, to the affordable housing and human services.
Okay, so I want to be clear. So we're going to have approximately $600,000 for our human services process.
In addition to the penny and a half as part of the current tax rate.
Okay. How much specifically for human services? That's what I'm trying to get at, because I know now it's 274, 275. 274,000.
I don't know if I have that answer.
Okay.
The breakdown between the two.
Okay.
Tonight.
Okay.
But we can.
It's more. Is what I'm hearing.
It can't. I don't think it can be less.
It won't be less. It'll be more, which is real exciting.
And I can defer to department heads, but I think it might go through a similar process to how funds have been disseminated in the past, but we're just for a budgetary purpose programming those dollars in advance. So potentially not making the decision or delineation between those two categories at this time. But we can.
It's in the book. I'm sure somewhere.
And I will take the pause to say that the whole town staff and department heads and leaders that are present have put yeoman's effort in developing this budget book, which includes council pillars previously identified, a lot of commentary around their budget considerations. They're available for questions as well, in addition just to the line items. But the meat of the book. We're not calling it a booklet. The meat of the book is the departmental considerations and commentary surrounding the lenses the council has identified and the narrative that affirms the pillars and the efforts that each department is taking on those behalves.
So should I ask Anne Marie?
You may.
She's coming. Thank you, Anne Marie.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Okay.
I've run these numbers. So I think given the numbers that I've seen, it's about $660,000 overall for the human services bucket. And supporting the Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness and IFC, when you back those out, it's about $450,000 for human services through the application process.
Ooh.
I know.
How you like me now? Yes. I love that. Okay. Yeah, that's all I needed.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne Marie. Any more questions? Councilmember Frey.
I'll be real brief. Brett, thank you for all of this hard work. To all of the department heads, thank you for all of the hard work, all of the tough decisions that you've taken. I just want to get my hands on it and start to get into the to the details. So thank you. I feel like this, due to the prep work that you put in, this is completely unsurprising. And so I'm like, all right, let me go and read the book.
Thank you, Councilmember Frey. Anyone else? Nope. We're just receiving. Yep. Public hearing June 18th at 7. Public hearing and adoption. 18th. Sorry. 2 weeks from today. Hand clap. for Brett, his team, department heads. Woo! Everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you. On the last item, Town Manager Tony. I don't know if there are any matters by council members.
Just really briefly, from the MPO, we had our joint meeting with the capital area MPO, the Raleigh's MPO, and this meeting was focused on updates to the Metropolitan Transit Plan, so the 30-year vision document for how the transit systems will interact throughout the region. I would really encourage y'all to find that meeting and watch it. As we embark on our LUO, it's very digestible. Watch the meeting. I'll go into a little more detail, but really what I want to say is watch the meeting, which is available on Granicus through the MPO, same way as it goes through ours. One of the reasons I bring this up before it fades from memory is as we look at our land use ordinance, the MPO modeled out several different growth scenarios throughout the triangle over the next 30 years. And they pursued different scenarios. There were scenarios based around like transit connected development. There were scenarios based around the total reduction of VMTs as kind of a North Star goal. And there were scenarios around maximizing federal dollars. And there were scenarios around maximizing highway decongestion, essentially. And what was particularly telling to me for Carrboro was that modeled out what we might assume was a transit-oriented sort of development path that we talk a lot about actually fared a little bit less well on almost every metric as compared to the North Star of reducing VMTs. If we start to consider our interconnectivity and land use decisions, certainly reducing VMTs requires like a transit-oriented development approach, but sort of reorienting the way that we think about those things. And one of the big things that scenario included was, I want to mute the microphone before I say this, was a vehicle use fee, was seen as a driver for a lot of the really positive outcomes. It's totally where the MPO is in the MTP is very there's going to be some big assumptions changing between this year and next as they firm this vision up. This is not all prescriptive or like absolutely baked at all, but a really interesting conversation. And I wanted to encourage everybody on the board and anybody who's listening to go listen to it, because we talk a little bit about VMTs and whether it's even viable or desirable to sort of reduce those with a lot of the decisions we make. I know it's late. So I thank you for your patience and indulging me on this. Go watch the Campo DCHC MPO joint meeting on Granicus. That's dchcmpo.legistar.com. You can find that meeting. Really, really good one. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sutton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have two things for the council. The first is the council and everyone out there, if anybody's watching, thank y'all. But no, as y'all know, Councilmember Frey and I sit on the naming committee for the 203 project. There is a survey out there, both in English and in Spanish, that can be found on multiple websites on our town social media and our town website. And several outlets have already reported on this as well. We want to make sure that folks know that until June 14th, we'll be accepting proposals for names for the committee to consider and then provide a recommendation for both bodies to name that building. I know there's been several conversations out in the community about what a name could be. So I want to encourage everyone and encourage us to also share with our networks with folks to be able to name that in a meaningful way that is community inclusive. That's number one. Number two, on the more kind of switching gears a little bit, we are in Pride Month, and it makes one of the things I wanted to put for consideration for the council, not for decide tonight, and we can have more conversations. But as Councilmember Frey and I have spoken, and a couple of other folks on this body around our non-discrimination ordinance, I think we would want to have further conversations how to strengthen some of that. But one of the things I want to mention tonight is working with folks across the country. One of the things that I find very intentional around inclusivity is in our nameplates like this one, putting our pronouns as a kind of way of showcasing not just the fact that we want to honor people's identities, but also showing that we have folks on this council who do not identify with that binary. There's no decision tonight, but just want to let you know that I'll be looking, and I've already had a conversation with our town clerk, and we'll be following up around what that might look like for us. I know I've talked to a couple of you individually, but I think there's no better time than Pride Month to open the formal conversation about adding pronouns to, something as simple as adding pronouns to our name tags, just so not only folks at home, but people in the audience can also see and, drive that inclusivity around town. But that is all I had, Madam Mayor. Whenever appropriate, I would like to make a motion.
To do what? A motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Yes. Is there anything else from anyone else? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.
I have an
Thank you.